Evolution Theory of the Hunter by Umlanpagoyawang. Read by Homebrew Audiobooks. Don't forget to subscribe for future releases. We hope you enjoy the show. Chapter 51. Tap. Right when I was trying to raise my reflex ability, an item dropped from one of the monsters. Holy cow. An item from the start. Young Soa scooped up the item. It was a cane. A level 2 amplification cane to be more exact. This item helped to increase the user's chances of successfully casting a spell. It was perfect for Manager Kim. Oh, isn't that mine? You can use it for now. But we'll be putting it up for auction as soon as we leave the dungeon. I'll still be buying it, so if you name a cheap price, I'll vote against it. You have a lot of money, right? Didn't you say that when you got fired, they paid you a healthy amount as severance? Young Soa trumpeted out loud. Kung. That's my retirement fund. But why'd you get fired? Cho Younggu asked. Little rotten bastards. I made a small mistake and the director tried to demote me and send me off to some rural place. So you got mad and quit? Quit my butt. I went to the director and gave him peace of my mind. What did you say? To please overlook it that one time, but he didn't listen. And then bam. You hit him? No. He hit me. He's a hunter too, you see. I used to follow him whenever he went on a raid, bastard. Wow. So you just let him hit you? What else could I do? If I got fired, there was nowhere else for me to go. But then that bastard said this. Manager Kim let out a deep sigh. If you resign now, I'll give you a good amount of severance pay. So you said yes? A circumstance warranted it. One of the employees I managed went over to the competition, you see. But it was my fault for not spotting it sooner. So that employee was giving the competition company intel. Well, I later found out that it was all masterminded by the director. When he thought that he was going to get caught, he just used me as the scapegoat. Manager Kim was shaking with anger at this point. From how angry he was, we could tell he wasn't lying. But you never know what a person is really thinking, so I'll chalk it up to believing half of it. It could also have been that the both were in cahoots and Manager Kim was the only one who got caught. Who knows? In that time, the monsters finished evaporating. A total of 6 ores dropped, one of them a blysonite. I stored the other 5 ores into the manual. They were automatically being applied toward the upgrade tab. I explained this feature as a kind of invisible backpack to everyone. Since there were items that served similar functions, no one thought it suspicious. But I did sense they were a bit envious. Shall we continue? The next point was about a 10-minute walk. We were planning to fight if a monster appeared and to move on if one didn't. This method would be the best in trying to find survivors as well. We continued in this manner for several points. It's very quiet, isn't it? Han Junsok whispered. Somehow the silence made it seem like whispering was mandatory. There wasn't a monster in sight. Were those 9 monsters it? I motioned everyone to stop. We were standing exactly where a monster should appear. The ground was covered in weeds that came up to your ankles. When I looked down and examined closer, I couldn't find what should have been there. Footsteps, blood, any other hint that someone or something had been here. There has never been a fight in this location. Maybe they lured the monsters away? Maybe they ran and were caught by the monsters somewhere else? It could be any number of reasons. Han Junsok responded. That was true. They might have lured the monsters inadvertently while running away. They purposely lured the monsters away. They killed the monsters using a spell where the fight might have lasted a minute, or they never stepped foot here. One was highly unlikely. If they had been running away, there would have been some caught and killed, which we should have seen evidence of on our way here. But not a drop. Number 2 was the most likely possibility. And number 3 and 4 were highly improbable. I tried to look for an area where they might have purposely lured monsters to hunt. There were too many. But the most likely place was an area about 50 meters off north of the hill. If I were the hunter, I would have chosen that spot. Is it here? The spot you were talking about? Yay. But no sign of anyone here either. It's going to be hard looking for them this way. What do you think about going to the last point and working backwards from there? Okay, let's do that. I nodded my head. There were a total of 10 monster points at the Bexapyeong dungeon. Compared to other dungeons, this dungeon was far larger, which resulted in more distance between each point. For this reason, if you wanted to clear the entire dungeon in less than 2 hours, you had to employ some unconventional methods. And we were able to discover that method at the last point. What is this? There were dozens of bodies lying around. No monsters though. But seeing as there were dropped items here and there, it was clear that a battle had taken place here. Altogether, there were 32 corpses. All but 8 had died here on this spot. It looks as if they had lured all the monsters to this spot. Those 9 we encountered were just monsters that slipped through the cracks. Han Junsok surmised. There were 3 points of entry, each wide enough to allow just 3 people to pass through at once. On examining where the bodies lay, it looks like there were about 10 hunters appointed at each of the entrances. This was thought out. It was definitely a waste of time for 40 hunters to go as a group from point to kill monsters. But it was also dangerous to split the group into 2 or 3 teams to cover more than 1 point at once. This was because every point had a different number of monsters. You could get lucky and run into a small number, or you could get unlucky and run into far too many. There wasn't a way to predict which points would have how many monsters and split the team in that way. That's when they probably came up with this. Instead of dividing up the team, they needed to call the monsters to them. Because the last point had 3 entrances, they probably used 2 of the entry points to lure the monsters and divide the team according to how many monsters came through via either point. The last entry point was probably left as an escape route. Crazy bastards. I couldn't keep myself from cursing. This was not a plan. In theory, it was a perfect. If the monsters moved in the way you wanted, this would have been the best way to hunt. But, just because they called out to monsters from 3 points didn't mean those would be the only monsters to appear. What would happen if monsters from other points decide to join the fray? The 9 lizardmen we had met probably formed a group in this very same manner. Then I realized one thing. If they had fallen into that kind of misfortune, there was no way that anyone would have made it alive. If in the small chance they did, they would have either made it out or we would have bumped into them on the way here. But neither of the 2 happened. Then where are the remaining 8? That was when I heard a monster's screech from the left entry point. An armored anteater popped up from beneath the ground. Key. Another one appeared to the right. This was a predatory toad. It seemed the 2 were waiting at either sides, waiting for prey to appear. The predatory toad swallows whole live humans and digests them slowly. If you are swallowed, it is said that you suffer for 30 minutes to an hour being digested. That's when I realized. There weren't any survivors. The reason why the dungeon hadn't reset even without any survivors was because of one reason. Within the predatory toad's stomach, there was still a living person, slowly being digested. Chapter 52. Thud. Thud thud. The monsters stomped on the floor as they drew nearer. 11 armored anteaters. 8 predatory toads. The anteaters wore a sturdy armor that enveloped their entire body. Their weaknesses were 2. Their exposed snout and their simple attack pattern. The predatory toads use their 3-meter-long tongue to grab a hold of their prey. They bind their prey in a stronghold as they release a paralyzing poison. Once you're caught, it was game over. But they were all full at the moment. They were probably still digesting their previous prey, so there was a low chance they would attack right now. Prepare for battle, I said as I drew my Hanshin sword. Manager Kim pulled out his cane and raised it above him. A bright golden light enveloped all the monsters. 3 of them collapsed on the spot. It wasn't too shabby, but there were too many so it didn't seem as impressive as it would have otherwise. Manager Kim started grumbling. This isn't that great, is it? So, you're not going to buy it then? Then I'll have it. Who said that? We all got into formation. Cho Younggu stood in the middle, I stood on the right, and Jong Sawan on the left. Han Junsok and Glasses Girl stood behind us. This was the best battle formation for this situation. Be extra careful of their tongues. Both monsters' tongues have a reach of over 3 meters. The toad's tongue secretes poison, so, if you are caught, make sure to stab it with this. I removed some automatic syringes from my bag and distributed them. Hitting it hard into the butt caused the needle to pop out and inject the receiver with a dose of antidote. Since this dungeon was known to have the predatory toads, I had packed these ahead of time. Not including the 3 sleeping ones, the rest of the 16 monsters slowly padded ever closer. And just when they were within the 3-meter distance, they began to attack. 16 tongues struck out seemingly in unison. The predatory toad's tongues were large and heavy-looking while the armored anteater's tongues were more narrow and quicker. It sucked, but in order for the Hanshin sword's explosive damage to work, I had to swing it with a certain amount of force. It didn't do to just cut the opponent. So it was hard to hit it with much force against a tongue that was constantly flicking back and forth. But it was still a level 3 sword. I just needed to slice the tongue off. As I sliced off the thick tongue right when it flicked toward and then away from me, venom mixed with the toad's saliva spurted out. Even though it wasn't an acidic poison, you still risked the possibility of losing your sight if it got into the eye. Even if you wore glasses, unless they were goggles, they couldn't keep your eyes completely safe. I stepped back reflexively each time I cut a tongue to protect myself from the spurt. Opposite of me, Zhang Sawan was cutting their tongues without a second's hesitation. His helmet and body armor served as perfect protection from the poison. And the Rubicon sword was able to cut through the tongues like butter. Easy. It was just that sharp. 2 arrows flew into the wide open mouth of one toad. One lodged into the uvula and the other into the tongue. The toad shot with the arrows started to cough as it swung its head around. I sliced off its tongue. With that, 7 had lost their tongues to us. And all 16 of them scooted a few steps back in caution. It seems they finally realized that just attacking with their tongues would not work against our defenses. The armored anteaters moved to the middle. It looked like they were getting ready to fight for real now. They're coming. Mr. Cho Younggu, to the center. Got it. Cho Younggu and I switched positions. We needed the level 3 shield now. Stomp. Stomp. The armored anteaters lightly ran closer. Keeping that speed, as they bowed their head toward their belly, they rolled up into a ball. It seemed this was in order to protect their weak point, their snouts. Though this attack made it hard for them to change directions, it also made it very difficult for us to give any damage. If we only had level 2 equipment, that is. Cho Younggu slammed the rolling anteater with his shield. An armored anteater generally weighed about 400 kilos, about the weight of a small car. And the impact was similar. It would normally be impossible for a human being to withstand that kind of impact and still stand his ground. But Cho Younggu was doing it. One by one, the armored anteaters continued that same attack and Cho Younggu continued repelling them one by one. This was the strength of a level 3 shield. It was able to absorb the shock of tremendous impact and send it right back. Seeing the futility of this attack, some of the other anteaters changed strategy to attack in Zhang Sawan and my direction. And at the same time, 6 toads from behind also started to jump toward us. To the left, yes, Cho Younggu moved positions to where Zhang Sawan was. More sounds of rolling. But honestly, what the hell will that do? We got this. I mean, the hard shell was nice and all, but nothing against my Hanshin sword. Schwing. +200, bam. +200, slam. +200. Every time I swung down with my sword and employed the explosive damage option, the hard armored shells burst. Having killed 3 of them in mere moments, I smirked and dashed forward. The anteaters that were being held back by Cho Younggu's shield were all being cut down limb from limb by Zhang Sawan's own Rubicon sword. In defiance, the toads began spitting out their poisonous tongues. Too bad only 4 of the 6 toads had their tongues intact. I spun my body around, then used my strength and reflexes to avoid every single nasty tongue to jump into the middle of the crowd of the bastards. Slurp. I saw the tongue coming and shifted a bit. It ended up just barely missing me and sticking onto the body of another toad. That toad seemed to shudder for a few seconds before going entirely still. Looks like they weren't immune to their own paralysis poison. How idiotic. I almost felt like laughing. Croak, croak. The remaining toads began to croak in a frenzy as they desperately tried to get me with their tongues. They only made it worse until almost all of them had paralyzed each other. Easy kills. The last remaining toad that was not paralyzed was struck in the forehead by Han Junsuk's arrow just perfectly. Then right before the sleeping spell could release the remaining monsters, Zhang Sawan slit all their throats one by one. Only after we made sure they had all died did we begin to cut open their stomachs one by one. Young Soa, who had been sneaking peeks from behind, began to make gagging noises. That girl. We were only able to save 2 people. Their skin, partially melted from the digestive juices of the toads, was hard to look at. But since they were alive, I'm sure they would be able to somehow recuperate. Hopefully they had some good insurance. I pulled out the escape scrolls from my bag. From the total 5 I had started out with, I had just 4 remaining. I shoved 1 each into the survivors' hands and had them rip them up. Only after I had sent out the survivors from the dungeon did I sigh and collapse to the ground. Young Soa came up to me and wiped off my sweat-soaked brow. You did well, thanks. I had earned a total reward points of 2,200 this raid. In total, I now had 4,530 points. Not bad. As we waited for the monsters to evaporate, all was silent. No one said a word. Because there were 38 corpses strewn all around us. 32 who had died during battle and 6 we had extracted from the toads' stomachs. I got up from where I was sitting and started to move all the bodies into one area. Then my party members also got up and followed suit. Even Young Soa and Glasses Girl helped. 12 ores. 38 people had died for 12 ores. We thought that was the end of it. Until Young Soa pointed to where the corpses lay. They had begun to evaporate. This is already the 2nd time this has happened. What the hell? Manager Kim said. We had seen dead humans evaporate once before. The only difference from that time was that I hadn't been the one to kill them. But if you really thought about it, even the one that Jong Sawan had killed that time evaporated too, so I guess it didn't just apply to me. Maybe it's like the irregulars. Whenever I'm a part of the equation, whether directly or indirectly, this kind of out of the normal thing happens. I didn't have to say this for everyone to realize that there was something about me. First the level 0 skillbook, then the irregulars. All of them had one thing in common. Me. Though it wasn't easy, I was able to use both to my advantage and become stronger. So it's a different system. Interesting. Han Junsok began to nod and said, then does that mean there are 2 raid systems? Cho Younggu said as if he couldn't believe it, but 50 years had passed since monsters first appeared. How is it that all of this is only happening now? Who says it's only happening now? Said Han Junsok slowly. What do you mean, party head? Didn't you say that the day you came upon the level 0 skillbook was the day that irregulars appeared all over the world? Yes. That's true. The irregulars appearing all over the world, it wasn't the first time it's happened before, was it? Well, no. It's happened a few times, though it didn't happen on a predictable timetable. I had been curious about that, so I'd done a search on it a few times. In the past 50 years, a worldwide occurrence of irregular appearances had occurred and many people had died each time. But since it wasn't something that happened often, people pretty much forgot about it after some years passed. What if this same thing happened every time those irregulars appeared? That makes no sense. Then why isn't there any documentation of it? If I wasn't the only one to get my hands on a level 0 skillbook, wouldn't other people know about it? It might be that only a select few like you had gotten a level 0 skillbook. And maybe, like you, they tried to sell it with no success, only to put it somewhere and forget about it. I guess. But it could also be that no one besides me had gotten the book. This was a skillbook I earned from killing a level 4 monster. This meant that there was a very high chance that anyone else who might have gotten their hands on a level 0 skillbook was someone who was over a level 4 in skill or equipment. Why would that kind of person be interested in a level 0 skillbook? This was all starting to make sense. But there is still one thing that we can't explain. Chapter 53. What is that? Whether this is it, or if it's just the beginning. Maybe this is an evolution of the dungeon. Li Weizong came to mind all of a sudden. When he came on the scene, the dungeon raids had evolved for the first time. He had changed the raid system when he came upon the first skillbook. And he greatly profited from it. A selfish part of me thought, what if I become like him? As the 38 corpses evaporated, items began to drop. It seemed the dropped items were based on the level of the dead people. Interesting. Wow, what is this? It's an escape scroll, like the one you just pulled out earlier. There's some equipment drops here too. Not sure what kind they are though. I looked at the item Han Junsok handed to me. It was a glove. I looked it up in my manual. Asterisk. Selfish Hunter's Glove, 1. Option. Increase item drop probability by 10% ***. This only affirmed my conviction of a new system. This was a never-before-seen item. Again. And this was also a never-before-heard-of option. But there were more items that were of equally amazing quality. Escape 010 sheets. Takes the user directly outside the dungeon. Selfish Hunter's Glove, 1. Increase item drop probability by 10%. Strider's Red Boots, 1. Increase speed by 30%. Optical Ruby Ring, 1. Enhance vision by 30%. Night Vision Enabled Chongmal Garter Belt, 1. Enhance muscle strength by 30%. Increases jump skill. Enchant, 1. Adds attack property to a weapon. 10-minute cool time. On top of that, we came up on 4 monozites, 5 bastnazites, 2 blysonites, and 1 anslite. Holy shit. Are they any good? Young Soa asked. Since they were all items I could only check with my manual, no one besides me knew their worth. Definitely. They're all level 1 items, but almost all of them seem to increase your ability or skill, so we could use them. Man. Wow. How much do you think they'll be if we sold them? We have to think about that. Why? Since they're all new things and haven't been inspected thoroughly, we wouldn't be able to sell them for much. If that's the case, it's better for us to just use it ourselves instead of selling it. Then how are we going to distribute them? That was the issue at hand. All the items probably had varying levels of usefulness. But because they were all new, we didn't have a market value to go by. For now, everyone just take whatever they want. Are you sure? We don't mind if you did it through contribution distribution. Han Junsok said as he looked to me. Manager Kim nodded his head in agreement. It's fine. Let's chalk it up to me taking these glasses and all of you taking something too. I tapped my glasses. The manual was something you couldn't buy with all the money in the world. Since I had taken this, it was only fair they take something too. I'll also take the ores. In trade for the items, there won't be any payouts this raid. Is that okay with everyone? I have no issues with that. Me neither. I'm good too. Same here. Yep, me too. I'm just fine with this. Zhang Sawan said as he tapped his Rubicon sword. Okay, then everyone aside from Mr. Zhang Sawan, please choose one item for keeps. If there is something that more than one person would like to have, I will choose which person said item will best suit. Everyone started to pick an item one by one. I want this one. I won't really have to do anything but can still contribute to the team. Young Soya chose the glove. Well, I did have to agree. Since she was the last person we would expect to ever help in an actual fight, that item suited her the most. Cho Younggu chose the red boots, Han Junsok chose the ruby ring, and Glasses Girl chose the skill. Manager Kim picked up the remaining garter belt item and wrinkled his face. So you're telling me to pick this? Garter belts originated for use by men. And because it serves as a support, it duels to assist your lower body. Then you wear it. I guess that won't work, huh? I looked to Young Soa and said, why don't you change with him? You're asking me to wear that? That has a power buff so it suits a porter. I guess, but she snuck a look at the garter belt that Manager Kim was holding up. Was she embarrassed to put on a black lace garter belt? Design-wise, it was a problem. Who in their right mind would wear something like that without a problem? Ms. Young Soa. Yes? One moment. Han Junsok strode up to her to whisper something into her ear. She nodded her head in a serious fashion and said to me, I'll wear it. Good. That's good. What were you guys talking about just now? Sunba Opa. That's none of your business. Young Soa handed the glove over to Manager Kim and took the garter belt. Now, there is one last thing. Huh? There's more? The thing that Manager Kim is hiding behind his back. I guess I got caught. Manager Kim made a silly smile and brought out the cane. How much will you buy it for? I cut right to the chase since there wasn't anyone besides Manager Kim who would buy it. Seeing his face, I slowly raised one finger. 100,000? Since Han Junsok bought the stalker at $100,000, he might make that his first offer. 1,000. Okay, let's put it up on the market. Everyone in agreement? Yes. Everyone nodded their heads. Manager Kim hurriedly countered with $150,000 and I accepted. When I started to do the contribution split, Zhang Sawan refused his share. Ultimately, we agreed that if a good item came up, he would get first pick. Since I could still use the item and get it into my item fusion book before giving it to him, it was not a bad deal for me either. There was a tax incurred when we put up our items for auction. Then there's also global income tax later on. These government guys. As if they do anything for us. At this rate, I was a little afraid of just how much taxes I would have to pay next year. But that was a problem for later. After this and that, like selling the fusion bloody sword and from the share of Manager Kim's payment, I had a total of about 500,000 to my name. I also had 3 Blysonites and 2 Anslites. I used the Blysonites to create one more bloody sword and sold it for 350,000. So I was able to raise my savings to 750,000 after taxes and such. With this much, it was enough to buy my own small apartment now. Just kidding. But it was true. My own house. Something I wasn't able to fathom just 2 months ago was now within reach. But not yet. If I just had one more Anslite, I could create a level 3 equipment. I could create a Hanshin sword or a Rubicon sword. Between the two, the Hanshin sword was more expensive, but since the items used to create it cost more, the value of the two were pretty much the same. I could make so much more money, I couldn't stop now. I needed to get ready to go into a level 3 dungeon. A month and a half had passed since the level 1 dungeons had disappeared. Things had been quiet since then, but no one knew if and when the level 2 dungeons might also disappear. I had to be prepared for that eventuality. If it was ever going to come. Chapter 54. Ding dong. The doorbell rang. There was only one person who would come by my house at this time of the night. What did I tell you about coming around whenever you? Bo. Good evening. It was Glasses Girl. I let her in the house with some confusion. The house was a mess, but, since she was the one who came without giving me a heads up, I figured it was her problem. I made some coffee and set a cup in front of her. She looked a bit anxious. So what brings you here? Just. It seemed she had something she needed to say. You have something you need to say, right? That's true. Jesus, I was starting to get real curious at this point. Was it that? Is it by any chance? Yes? Glasses Girl raised her head in surprise. Are you here to talk about the exclusivity contract? What? If it's that, you don't have to worry too much about it. Since you didn't technically take the item yet and we didn't write up and sign the contract yet. If you have a change of heart, just let me know right now. That's, if you want to join a different team, you're free to do so. But I'll say one thing. There are teams just as bad or worse than Team Ezekiel all over the country now. You're a decent hunter, but, at your current level, you do realize you're not really too strong, right? It's going to be hard for you to join a decent team. I'm not saying this for selfish reasons, I'm saying this as your friend. Yes. Glasses Girl looked at me with a blank face and nodded her head. I figured this would be enough to sway her. Then are we done here? Well, the reason I came here today is. Slam. Sunba Opa, I'm here. Young Soa burst through the front door and came in. Seeing how she was holding bags in both hands, it seemed she planned to hang out all day at my house and maybe sleep over again. Where did you learn that bad habit of opening the door to other people's homes whenever you want? The door was already unlocked. Oh? Yeongkyung's here? What's going on? I wanted to say thank you for all that Partyhead has done for me. Glasses Girl started looking through her bag and took something out. It was a bag of kimchi and varieties of other side dishes. What's all this? My mother personally made all these side dishes to give to Partyhead. I told her how you lived alone and so she made them all. Oh, she didn't need to go through all that trouble, I can just buy it. That was what I said, but I was secretly happy inside. I was especially happy to see homemade marinated meat. If I wanted to eat something like this outside, I would need to pay $10 for just one serving. Just because I was making good money now didn't mean I wanted to use it all willy-nilly. I also brought something too. What? You too? Look. Slam. She had brought a box full of spam, hams, instant noodles, variety tuna cans, and frozen dumplings. Wow. Such a difference. I came to make you food today. I felt bad for always bumming food at your house. Since the shelf life for all this is pretty long, let's eat the food that Yeongkyung brought over today. I'll cook. Glasses Girl got up from her seat. Then Young Soa said, You know how to cook? Yes, I learned from my mom at home. Now that she said this, I saw that there was a fresh wound on her hand. It wasn't something she would get from her bowstring. Surely she didn't just learn it so that she could especially cook something today. I'm going to make food too. We both know you don't know how to cook. I know how to make instant ramen, okay? No, I think I'd prefer to eat this than that. HMPH. I guess you just don't know how delicious my jajang ramen tastes. Just don't be surprised by its deliciousness after you've had it. She said this as she folded up both her sleeves. My kitchen was small. There was no way the both of them could cook in my kitchen comfortably together. They looked incredibly cramped. I didn't think they needed to go through all the trouble, but, since I was the one doing the eating, I decided to just see how it would end up. As they continued their shenanigans in the kitchen, I looked through the internet news. The incident from the Beksapyeong dungeon made the main page of the news. 38 hunters from Team Ezekiel, all dead in dungeon, have still been unable to find the bodies. The Beksapyeong dungeon was now closed. The dungeon inspectors looked for the dead bodies for days, but there was no way they would find anything. Because they had evaporated, down to the very last strand of hair. There is word that another similar incident had also occurred at the Bukhansan dungeon as well. According to the officials, the news seemed to have made the connection with the Bukhansan dungeon incident. I guess it should be expected since all trace of hunters had disappeared from both scenes. I'm sure that soon the police will make the connection that our team had been present both times. All that ran through my head was that it would be annoying. But that was it. Because no matter how much they looked, they wouldn't find anything incriminating. *****. Oddly enough, Young Soa's jajang ramen really hit the spot. Of course, the food that Glasses Girl brought made me happy too. Because you could taste the care that goes into homemade food after not having tasted any for a long time. The problem was that my stomach couldn't handle eating the entirety of what these two girls had made. And I could see them watching me eat the entire time. Is this a new form of torture? Are they trying to cause me indigestion? You guys aren't eating? I'll eat after watching Sunba Opa eat everything. I'm not that hungry right now. Somehow I was able to eat everything they had made. In all my life, this was the most I had eaten in one sitting. If there was a digestion upgrade from my effort skill, I'm sure I would have leveled up. Then I'll do the dishes. Huh? I was going to do it. Young Soa hurriedly grabbed some dishes and followed me into the kitchen. Behind her, Glasses Girl had picked up a few dishes and trotted into the kitchen too. It's fine. Just go kill time on the computer or read a comic on the bed or something. I'll do this. Okay. The two of them finally relented. When I came into the room after doing the dishes, I saw the two of them rummaging through my new folder. Haha. Just what are you guys doing? Aw? Young Soa said as she turned around in surprise. Glasses Girl said, so I guess Party Head organizes things in this manner. Because I have so much paperwork. Organizing it all in alphabetical order caused some problems. I had tons of paperwork on dungeon locations, monsters, and items. They were organized by levels and then again by order of danger. Of course, general information on dungeons are easy to find, but that folder was an amalgamation of information that isn't easy to come by. Soa made a face as if she was annoyed about something. What? Isn't this where you're supposed to hide like porn and stuff? This girl? What kind of guy do you take me for? There's no way I would hide that kind of stuff in such an obvious spot. I made it so that even if you did a word search, you wouldn't find anything. And the whole reason I did that much is because of her. Stop making my single life so complicated. Geez. Wah. Young Soa lay down on my bed and started going through a comic book as if it were her own home. Glasses Girl sat at my desk and resumed surfing the internet. I somehow started feeling as if I were the one out of place in my own room. What the hell? Today's a rest day. Don't you guys have plans? Speaking of rest days, don't you have any plans? I like staying home. I don't like going out anyway. I'm an introvert. And even if I did go out, there'd be nothing for me to do. It's not like I have any friends to hang out with either. You have a friend right here. Here too. The both of them raised their hands. So are you saying we should go out and do something? I mean, the weather is nice. Maybe we should go out to the park. I nodded my head. I guess that could be fun. Asterisk 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 swoosh swoosh. I'm wearing a dress. Come on. Proper posture. Tap. Okay. Soa responded as she lowered her upper body. Since we were coming out to the park, we decided to get some practice in. Because if you didn't practice these kinds of things often, your body starts forgetting. I made Glasses Girl do some shooting with the practice bow I had from my college days. How peaceful. I finally felt okay. It was the first time I felt so uncomfortable in my own home. There was a weird kind of aura in that room that I couldn't figure out. But this was good. While the two of them kept at it, I looked through my manual. The item storage was already full. I checked my stats next. Skill type. Effort, 0. Skill has the ability to use reward points to increase physical abilities. Extra skill, option. None proficiency, 19 reward points, 4,530 abilities, strength 200, endurance 300, reflexes 150, focus 150, defense 150 upgrade, 26 100s. I had saved up quite a bit of reward points. I should have used them to raise up my abilities at Bexapyeong, Flat Sandbar, Dungeon, but things got so crazy I wasn't able to get around to doing it. Luckily, I didn't have to go through all the crazy training to raise my abilities anymore. I was actually worried for a moment that I might have had to run a cross-country marathon at some point. What should I raise up next though? Not including endurance, I could probably raise up everything else at least 2 times with the points I had. Since I have some reliable equipment now like the Hanshin sword, I guess it would make more sense to raise up reflexes and defense rather than strength. I pressed the reflexes tab. Tap. Whoa. It felt like I really pressed on something real. So real. Would you like to use your reward points towards increasing your reflexes? Yes, no. 2 options appeared. I pushed my finger to the yes option. You have successfully increased your reflexes. Proficiency has been raised to 20. Level 2 dungeons are now scheduled to be erased. What? What the hell does that mean? Sunba Oppa? Party Head? Both girls stared at me with concern in their eyes. This is wrong. We finally came to a point where we could confidently clear a level 2 dungeon. But now it's saying they're going to be erased. So we have to start from scratch again? Shit. Effing shit. Shouldn't they at least give us some time to get used to clearing level 2 dungeons and gain more experience so that we don't die in level 3s? Cancel. No. Shit. What the hell am I supposed to do now? Since there wasn't a cancel button, I kept yelling the word out loud like a crazy person. But the manual didn't respond. I hurriedly took off the glasses. Maybe if I'm not wearing it, it'll stop whatever crazy thing it was trying to do. Like hell. I put the glasses back on. Asterisk reflexes 200, reward points 2,530. Proficiency 20. Asterisk. I should have realized the correlation earlier. It was all there, right? It makes sense. As I increased the proficiency of my skill, it resulted in erasing of dungeons. Now that I think about it, it was when I clocked in 10 in my proficiency that level 1 dungeons had disappeared. 10 minutes hadn't even passed when I got the call from Han Junsok with that bit of happy news. Ring. Yay. Like now. Hello? Partyhead. Bad news. Level 2 dungeons are all gone? What? What are you talking about? What do you mean level 2 dungeons are gone? What the hell's going on then? Wait. Then what do you mean bad news? The Yellow Sea disappeared. What? I almost dropped my phone. ******. Once we got back to my place and searched the internet, Han Junsok had gotten it wrong. It's not that the sea disappeared. Land had appeared out of nowhere. What in the world? Young Soa had her mouth wide open. The new land that had appeared was huge. It was strange that new land of this size had appeared without so much as an earthquake or tsunami. Just looking at this, it was obvious that this was not natural. This is crazy. The news was lit. I wonder if they had felt this way 50 years ago when the monsters had first shown up. They're saying it's not just in our country. In Africa, a new island appeared next to Madagascar. In North America, the Yucatan Peninsula was now connected by land with Florida, Alaska, and Siberia. Wow. Does this mean we need a new world map? Young Soa said in wonder. We're lucky if that's the extent of it. It wasn't clear if this was it. It probably wasn't. Isn't it good that we now have more land? Our country was too small as it was. No, we have a lot of land, we just can't use it properly because of all the monsters. I continued surfing the internet for some answers. A number of monsters found on the new lands. These monsters are found to be low-level monsters of levels 1 and 2s. None others are reported to have been found as of yet. About 10 minutes ago, coinciding with the upheaval of the new continents, disappearance of level 2 dungeons have been confirmed. It is reported that the government feels the two incidents are related in some manner and an investigation is underway. Damn it. So the level 2 dungeons did disappear. The government had decided to name the new land as the West Sea. But now there was the not-so-small matter of Korea being connected to China. The idea of joint management of the new land was quickly ignored. China became so adamant that the new land was theirs that they deployed a large number of hunters to forcefully seize it. And the Korean government immediately followed suit. Then the Chinese government made the threat that they would not trade any agriculture, to which the Korean government threatened to remove all hunter markets. And so finally China was forced to take a step back. At the time, the removal of hunter markets would spell disaster for China. So in the end, they came to a kind of agreement. So what happened? Cho Younggu asked. We had all met up at the cafe in Shinshin to talk about the recent events. It seems they will be sending out as many hunters as they can to the West Sea. In terms of hunters, Korea has the most and of the highest levels. Well, that's all thanks to Weezung teacher. He was the first real hunter, and the strongest of them all. It was thanks to him that Korea was able to corner the hunter market and raise the levels in a shorter amount of time than other countries, though most of them were at level 3 and 4. Anyone at and above a level 5 were considered the best of the best. These were the hunters who had been raising their skills since 50 years ago. In general, our hunter power is at least 3 times that of those in China. But the problem is that China's population is 30 times that of Korea. Han Junsok finished. Since the day of the disaster when the monsters first appeared, the population of Korea near the Yellow Sea had stayed at a steady 20,000, while the population of China along their border was at 500,000. But it would be difficult for China to exert their power. How is that? Now that the level 1 and level 2 dungeons are gone, even if we just stationed those hunters who are now out of jobs at the West Sea, the sheer population of China, well, the real problem is whether or not the West Sea is even worth fighting over. Everyone became quiet and lost in thought at what I had just said. There was plenty of land filled with monsters. But that wasn't the issue. The issue was that we couldn't lay around while we had perfectly good land snatched out from under us, even if it was riddled with monsters. Well, even if it isn't worth fighting over, we now have no choice to go to that land. Since all the level 2 dungeons are gone now, that's the only place we can really hunt now. Who knows, maybe the hunt might be even better, since they did say that only level 1 and level 2 monsters were seen there. But before that, I looked to Zhang Sawan. Can you come with us? I will do whatever you ask. The Yellow Sea is very big. We might not bump into that monster for another 6 months. It doesn't matter. No matter the species, a monster is a monster. Understood. Then we're all agreed. But would we be able to move in the same parties? Don't you think the government will likely form groups themselves based on equipment and skill levels? Chapter 55. Han Junsok said, they do make exceptions. Some pre-existing parties are allowed to move independently. But they are required to register. So it might be a good idea to apply. Wow. Then does that mean we get to create a name for our party? Young Soa asked excitedly. I thought we would just call it Team Jaeon Sangmin. Everyone gave me a funny look. Doesn't this make it easy? But the name is like branding. Using just your name is kind of. Then do you have a better name in mind? Team Soa Love. How's that? Do you want to die? Do you want us to die from embarrassment before even going up against any monsters? I don't think the team name really makes too much of a difference, but wouldn't it be better if we went for a name that had more impact? Like, Team Junsuck's the best. You were that kind of person? I was kidding. I guess this is harder than it seems, huh? How's Team Zero? Party Head and Unnie both have level 0 skills. Plus it's easy to remember. Something about that name sounds too common. Manager Kim slowly shook his head. Even after bouncing one name after another off each other for the longest time, we couldn't find one we agreed on. Right when I was about to just decide on using Team Jaeon Sangmin, a word whispered in my mind. Delta. What? What's that? I think that's the name of the new system. Though I'm not sure. That was what the manual had said. Delta V.01. It's not bad. I agree. Soa raised her hand. And so we had decided to name our party, Team Delta. If you take Route 32, you now come across a beach that used to be the Manripo Beach. Once a desolate place, it was now packed with thousands of people. There were temporary residences stationed in addition to a busy shopping center. It was where our country and the West Sea was now connected. Wow, this isn't a joke. Soa said with her head out the car window. Where there should have been the sea was an endless horizon of new land. The land was nearly completely flat with some small hills and boulders sprinkled here and there. Aren't there any mountains? I think this is the first time I've seen such flat lands in our country like this. From what we know, the highest point is about 500 meters. I answered. The Yellow Sea topography was well known, satellites are amazing. It seemed that the high-level hunters have been getting dropped into the new land by helicopter already. But do you think that's true? That the parties able to clear an area of the new land will be given partial ownership of it? Cho Younggu, driving the vehicle, asked. Since it's coming from the government, I'm sure it's not entirely false. But the partial aspect of it is a bit iffy. It might just be some sweet talk to seduce a bunch of hunters here. So what are they going to do when the hunters all come together and ask them for payment by land? If the government was smart enough to think that ahead, they wouldn't have operated the dungeons in that half-assed manner. Homeland Busan Dungeon Management Team. These were the guys who had charged exorbitant admission fees while paying pennies on the dollar for ores found in the dungeons. On top of that, since they charged taxes on everything as well, you could say they were making income 3 ways. The problem I had with them was that they had zero intention of cultivating general parties. If they had just made the admission fees even a bit more affordable or paid a bit more for the ores, general parties probably would have flourished. And if that had happened, they would have been able to level up faster and we would have had that much more hunters in our country. But rather than reduce the fees, they hiked the admissions every year. It was probably the government's main source of income at the end of the day. The hunters were probably akin to a goose that lays golden eggs to them. But China was worse, from what I heard. They paid their hunters a very low salary and worked them like slaves. Talk about a disincentivizer. If it wasn't true, China would have easily overthrown us with the sheer volume. Soa and Glasses Girl disappeared somewhere saying they wanted to look around while Manager Kim stayed in the CCAR. It took 30 minutes for us to complete the procedure of registering our party. It was faster than I thought it would be. I thought there would be way more people than this too. Han Junsok said. There are probably a lot of people standing by for now. No matter how sweet the payout is, it's never more precious than a life. And one team can keep only so much land clear of monsters. And who said there are only level 1 and level 2 monsters? This is all so new. And the goal should be the reward from ores and drops from monsters, not the land. Keeping the land clear of monsters that constantly reappear, it's the government's way of pushing off that annoying job to hunters with the golden carrot of land. Han Junsok said in return. I agreed. In any case, those two are a bit late in getting back. Cho Younggu murmured. It had been over 10 minutes since Young Soa and Glasses Girl headed over to the stalls. They probably got lost track of time doing a bit of shopping. The only thing they sell here are basic food supplies and hunting equipment. There probably isn't anything they'd be interested in. That was when it happened. Pow! A red light burst into the sky from behind a container. It was far, but I recognized what it was. A flame-enchanted arrow. Could it be Ms. Bei Yeongkyung? Let's go see first. Tap. I kicked at the ground. I ran almost fast enough to leave an afterimage. What could it be? Seeing me running at such a fast speed, the surprised onlookers hurriedly moved out of the way. I left a trail of dirt clouds in my wake. I was able to find them after running several hundred meters in less than 30 seconds. This was because there was a crowd of hunters that seemed to be threatening some other person, or two. We said we already have a party. Soa yelled out. All you have to say is you don't like us if you don't like us. You don't have to lie like that. Hurting our pride. Phew. I lightly sighed as I pushed aside the group of hunters surrounding Soa and Glasses Girl. All I did was push them lightly with one hand, but a bunch of them toppled over like dominoes. Sunba Opa, party head. A look of relief came over both their expressions as they caught sight of me. A thick hand clamped over my shoulder. Who the hell are you? These betches said they had a party already, is that you? And you look weak as hell too. Crack. Awk. I probably broke that hand. We were wondering where you guys were. And you guys end up being here getting pushed around like this? We were just minding our own business when those guys came and threatened us to join them on a raid. Is that true? Nod. Glasses Girl nodded her head. I heard a rough yell from behind me. This bastard. Do you know what the hell you just did? Do I have to know? I turned around. There were 12 of them. And all of them looked like they had bad attitudes. I knew exactly what to expect from guys who would threaten girls at a place like this. Trash. I guess we need to teach you a lesson. Since you were the one who made the first move, I'm sure you won't have any problems with us showing you a thing or two. I know that you want to justify starting a fight, but do you think that kind of reasoning will go over with the officials? As if they'll really care. I guess. All of this was something that happened suddenly. There wasn't really anyone on standby regulating it. Other hunters, seeing the mood, started backing away. Sunba Opa, squeeze. Soa grabbed the bottom of my shirt in a squeeze. Stop trying to get close. But I was so scared. Really? Well, okay then. I put on my glasses. Manual on. Items. Level 2 armor and bloody sword. What? All 12 of them went from surprise to panic instantly. What? Did you think I'd fight all of you guys with my bare hands? Shit. Everyone hold your weapons. In a matter of seconds, things got even more heated. Here we go. I was probably barely 3 meters away from the group of idiots. Close enough where if we just stretched out our arms toward each other, we would be able to touch fingertips. Right at the peak of it all. Yo, who is this? A familiar face peeked out from among them. Comically slanted eyes, a pointed chin, and a long face. Just like a weasel. I was wondering if you were alive. I didn't think I'd meet you someplace like this. Both ends of his lips began to curl up. Who are you? You're saying you don't remember me? No. Your face is a bit familiar, but I can't seem to quite place you. I'm Soul Predator Ban Shihyung. Come on. We even did a raid in a dungeon together. I don't remember such an embarrassing name as that. Kook? Then do you remember this guy? He brought into view a magician holding a cane. I guess you remember now, huh? Sorry. My mistake. I thought he reminded me of a friend. This bastard. Ban Shihyung started grinding his teeth. I guess he was kind of annoyed. Keu, I could hear Soa and Glasses Girl trying to stifle their giggles behind me. His face started to turn a bright red now. I guess it must have been pretty embarrassing to put on such a grand entrance for naught. Of course I remembered who he was. I just wanted to piss him off a bit. He was the party head I had raided a dungeon with before. He was the one who partnered with the magician to purposely retire a bunch of his own party members. That bastard. He was someone I didn't have any desire of acknowledging. Well, that's fine. I was going to let it slide since we knew one another, but now. Now I remember. Yeah, you were the one who threw friendly fire at your party members, right? What? I figured you wouldn't live long since you did PK as casually as someone would eat food, so I'd erased you from memory. This bastard. Shut that damn mouth. Not only was his face red now, it looked like it would explode like those cartoon thermometers that get really, really red at the top. I had to keep myself from laughing. Hey, head. Is that true? What do you mean, is that true? Do you think I would do something like that? No, I never saw it myself, but I did hear some rumors. Shut up. Don't believe some nonsense coming from a youngster like that. After shutting up his little group, he walked over to me. I was about to ask you to join my group because I thought you had some skills, but I'll save you the trouble and say nah. Kook. I could hear him grinding his teeth again. Maybe I should stop now. I don't know what kind of nerve you have with just the 3 of you, but you think you can win against all of us? Especially with those betches that look like they can't do shit. I wonder. I don't think you're counting correctly. Pat. A golden light rose above their heads. It was Manager Kim's sleep magic. I'm tired. Why am I so? Drop. Drop. His spell dropped 5 of them to sleep. What the hell's going on? Ban Shihyung started jumping around in a circle to figure out what just happened. Then he saw behind him, about 20 meters away, a middle-aged man holding up a cane. And next to him stood Cho Younggu, Han Junsok, and Jong Sewon, all in a row. Han Junsok had his bow drawn and locked on the weasel already. Now, it looks like we're a bit more even, doesn't it? Out of the total 15, not the initial 12 I counted, 5 were now asleep. We had a total of 7. It was fine though because Jong Sewon, Cho Younggu, and I had level 3 equipment. Ban Shihyung was just a level 2 hunter if my memory serves correctly. Awk. Shit. He started to kick at the ground after seeing he couldn't win. Just watch. I'll get you. Just watch. Whatever. I shrugged my shoulders as I watched them make their retreat. How embarrassing. Soon after, Han Junsok and the rest caught up to where we were. Han Junsok said with a wooden face. Soul Predator Ban Shihyung, it's a name I've heard before. I guess he's pretty well known. Not really, there's just word about him because he's been going around with a group of 30 people. Looks like he has only 15 now including himself. Well, you know how rumors go. But is it okay to just let him leave like that? I'm sure he'll try to exact some kind of petty revenge later. Han Junsok looked worried. I can't say I wasn't a little concerned myself. I thought we should have handled it, but this wasn't the place for it. Too many prying eyes. There are too many witnesses. It's not like we could kill him. And if we took care to not kill them, we could end up getting unnecessarily hurt. Plus, he's riled up. If he makes a move, he won't do it with a calm and calculated mind. You're expecting him to strike back? I'm just thinking worst case scenario. Both sides knew fighting here would not do. But we would be heading to the Yellow Sea Road shortly. That land had no governing laws. It was a land of monsters. It was a land where anything could happen and no one would bat an eye. Ban Shihyung, he was someone I could handle anytime. After finishing up, we all got into Cho Younggu's car and headed to the Yellow Sea Road. This was only possible because it had 4-wheel drive. It was a land without any paved roads, so the car bumped the entire way. Cho Younggu said, I guess I'll have to get it properly maintained later. I'll be sure to compensate you properly for that. No, that's not necessary. We're all using it together. I need to do at least that much. If it wasn't for his car, I would have had to purchase a car myself. It was only right to pay him for maintenance. After riding for 10 minutes, we saw some monsters ahead in the distance. They were in a groups of a little over 10. But they were just toddling around. They probably didn't spot us yet. We braked to look around and saw that there were parties already engaging in fights. Let's get started too. The sun was starting to set. We fought against cave wolves, goblins, wedge moles, and water slimes all day. We covered a distance of about 10 kilometers in that time, slower than walking speed. Phew. Let's call it a day. We parked the car and made a fire so we could take a break. Since monsters typically avoided fires, it had that added benefit. Of course there were monsters that didn't avoid fires, but it was better than being attacked in the dark. All we needed to create a bonfire were some dry shrubs. There weren't any tall trees, but there were quite a few shrubs that came up to the waist. There were even some animal that weren't monsters. This made me start to wonder if this was not land that rose from the sea. I think this is the most monsters I've seen since ever. Young Soa commented while poking at the fire with a stick. I agreed. We had probably killed about 150 monsters today. All of them were level 1s. Thanks to that, we were able to collect over 70 ores. Save for a few I needed to use on item fusions, I put the rest towards upgrading. Carrying them around would only make the car heavy. It was better to invest them into the upgrade. But it was definitely a lot of ores. Altogether, they probably had a market value of $90,000. It's like a land of prosperity here. Han Junsok murmured. Everyone nodded in agreement. And this was from covering only 10 kilometers of land bordering the Yellow Sea. If it was like this here, just how many monsters would there be towards the center? I couldn't even imagine how many ores and items we would be able to pick up there. Everyone's face was filled with excitement and hope. Let's organize everything for now. 3 total dropped items. They weren't really anything special. We did only kill level 1 monsters. Longsword, 1, generic sword. Can give damage to level 1 monsters. Agile sword, 1, increase reflexes by 15%. Backpack, 1, can carry 30% more items in the bag. Weight of the items are 30% lighter. All 3 items will be used by Soa. Huh. Really? Soa said with a dumb look on her face. I'm using the same method as before. I will keep all the ores while we pass dropped items to those it is best suited for. Whatever is left over will be sold and distributed evenly per member. I hope everyone agrees with me on this. Well, I guess it's easier to do it this way anyway. Plus items will keep dropping, so it's not a bad deal. Han Junsok responded. I nodded my head. There would be plenty of items to go around. Chapter 56. Monsters here are generally estimated to be level 1s. This means that the price of level 1 items is bound to soar back up in the markets. And that means that we will be making far more money on what we earn than we have been. This was no exaggeration. If we went and sold just 2 of the items over there, we would be able to get a return of $300,000 now. Wow. Glasses Girl raised her hand to her chest and took a deep breath. I guessed she probably started to do the math in her head. But if that's the case, wouldn't it be unfair to you, Partyhead? If we were doing the payout the traditional way by contribution distribution, I would have earned half of $400,000 today. So it would seem like I was taking a loss. But I didn't think of it that way. This was not a dungeon, and we were not a group of people who were expendable to one another. We were not a temporary team. We are a real team. I believe that strengthening my team members indirectly strengthens me too. So I hope that everyone here thinks of it that way as well. There was a limit to what I can achieve by just getting strong alone. This was just like raising my abilities. I couldn't just raise one. I had to raise them all to be truly stronger. Like synergy. And the stronger we all get, the more we would all be able to earn faster. I looked at it as an investment into our future. Well, I guess an item fit for me will fall at some point too. Manager Kim said as he lay down on a mat he had rolled onto the ground. It seemed everyone was in agreement. Because more items will drop tomorrow than did today. We decided to switch off, keeping lookout 2 at a time. Some slept in the car while some slept in front of the fire outside. And I had no intention of sleeping that night. Will you be okay? Won't you get tired? Glasses Girl, chosen to be the first to stand watch, No Yeonkyung, asked. Even if you fall asleep today, never take your hands off your bow. Is it because of them? Ban Shihyung. There was a higher probability he would come after us today rather than later. Because as time went on and they went on to earn items, they would end up being more concerned about doing that than coming after us. I could hear sounds of insects. I listened as vigilantly as I could. Cho Younggu, who was up as lookout, was fast asleep inside the car. I thought to wake him up, but decided to let him rest. I had endurance buff so I could handle it, but I'm pretty sure it was harder for everyone else. The night sky was surprisingly still very light. There was zero light pollution and there was no smoke either. I wondered if there were some otherworldly powers or forces at work. There were stars sprinkled all over the sky. A thought came into my mind that I wouldn't ever be able to see something like this anywhere else but here. Flutter. I heard a sound. There was nowhere to hide here. I looked toward where the sound came from. Mr. Cho Younggu. Chicken. I want to stop frying it. This man, what kind of dream is he having? I shook him awake. What is it? There's someone watching us. About 50 meters away. Since they're trying to be quiet about it, I'm pretty sure it's human. Surely, it's not them? I'm not sure yet, but let's start waking everyone up. It would be best if they saw us wake and run away, but if they don't, we have no choice but to fight. I nodded my head. I woke up Manager Kim and Helmet Guy, who had both been asleep by the bonfire. Cho Younggu opened the car door and woke everyone else up. As soon as we started to move in earnest, I could feel a surprised energy coming from Cho Younggu's side. Han Junsok came up beside me. Can you tell who they are? He had the optical ruby ring in his possession. That item allowed the holder to see as if it were day. There are exactly 16 of them. Ban Shihyung is among them. Everyone get ready for battle. Ping. An arrow lodged into the ground right in front of my foot. We were lit up by the light from the bonfire while they were still hiding in the dark. We were at a disadvantage. I could hear Ban Shihyung's Weasley voice. You guys are quick. I figured if you were to attack, it would be today. If you die here, people will just chalk it up to a monster attack. It's not too late, you know. I can still give you one last chance? I didn't say a word. But he continued talking. He had us outnumbered and was at a tactical advantage. He thought there was no way he could lose. Hand over all your equipment and work under me. Then I'll let you keep your lives. Isn't it kind of dark? What are you? I took 2 rods I had on my belt and twisted off the tops. Chi. At the end of the rods, a bright light began to sprout out. Flares? Have you ever heard of ground markers? Since it was in English, it sounded real fancy, but they were just long-lasting signal flares. Because real flares are expensive. Tap, tap. I threw both ground markers at the bastards. Now they were clear as day. Shit. Attack. At Ban Shihyung's order, Manager Kim started his sleep spell. A golden light floated above our opponents. And 4 of them dropped right to the ground. In that time, a few arrows flew in our direction as well. Even though we now had the light of the markers, the arrows were still barely visible in the night. Ting, ting. Cho Younggu had his shield up and was blocking off the attacks. Slice. Kook. Han Junsuk's own arrow pierced the neck of an opponent. 10 left. I had a longsword in my left hand and the Hanshin sword in my right. It was better to fight against many with this sword than the bloody sword. Seeing first blood being drawn, they seemed to go crazy and ran right at us. But they were slow. A good indicator they didn't have any items with buffs. At best they had maybe 1 or 2 men with level 2 equipment. I felt bad for them. This wasn't a fight. Boom. My Hanshin sword made a small explosion. My opponent's sword shattered and the pieces lodged in his arm. AHHK. Slice. Jong Sawan's sword sliced right through the man's armor, met with almost zero resistance. A waterfall of red showered into the air. Shit. Throw the fireball. As soon as Ban Shihyung made the command, the magician raised his cane. A fireball the size of a person's head began to form. Han Junsuk's arrow shot across the air. Kook. Hit in the back with the arrow, the magician gurgled up some blood and collapsed to the ground. This was the stalker at work. As soon as the magician fell to the ground, any illusion that they might win shattered as well. The only reason they had continued fighting even as their comrades were dying left and right was because they had trusted in the power of Ban Shihyung and the magician. But, not only did we have 0 damages on our side, they now only had 5 people standing on theirs, Ban Shihyung, 2 archers, and 2 warriors. The rest were either dead or fast asleep. What the hell? This doesn't even make sense. How can something like this? Despair was etched all over Ban Shihyung's Weasley face. I slowly walked toward them. 2 of the cowards started to grovel. Please, please spare us. We only did it because that bastard made us. Slice. +100, +200. I struck out in one clean cut with my sword and sliced both their necks. There was no way we could let anyone out of this alive. It would be a massacre. Hyuk? The 2 archers behind them dropped their weapons and started to run away. Jong Sawan chased after them. Han Junsuk and Bae Yongyang aimed their arrows at the fleeing backs as well. Now we only had the one bastard and the sleeping fools to deal with. The despair bled out from his eyes and was quickly replaced with anger. Do you have any last words? F off. You think I'd go down that easy? He threw something to the ground. It was a smoke grenade. As the grenade continued to spin and spew out smoke, it not only messed with my vision, but it also covered any sounds I could rely on. But that was the same for him too. I started to swing all around me with my Hanshin sword. Slam. I felt something hit the end of my blade at last. Kook. Ban Shihyung was bumped right out of the cover of smoke from my explosive hit. Seeing that his armor was just fine, it was probably a level 3 equipment. But he probably still felt the explosive impact of my weapon. He held the side of his waist in obvious discomfort and started to cough uncontrollably. Cough. Cough. I have something I want to ask you. Kook. You want to say you have something you're curious about now? After all this? Why did you decide to attack us? What? Weren't you ready to attack us too? I was just prepared for any eventuality. I knew you were trash, but I didn't think you would really go through so much trouble to come after us like this. Ku, bastard. Then you should have just died quietly. Seriously? That's not my style. Ban Shihyung stared at the ground for a long time. Then said, if I tell you something, will you let me live? No. Kook, bastard. I like that you're honest. Cough. I might have effed up something inside because he started to cough up blood as he said. We originally had over 30 people in our party. So what happened to the rest? They all died. Because of the hunter bastards. Hunters? Yeah. The first day that the West Sea appeared. There was a group that entered the land first. They had hunted the monsters here and massed together a much of equipment. That's when they realized that this land was a gold mine. How many people do you think would want to share such a gold mine with others? You're saying they killed other hunters for that reason? They had another reason too. Even if you kill someone on this land and they have the equipment on them, the equipment doesn't disappear. ***, we left no one alive. We all gathered in front of the bonfire as we waited for the bodies to evaporate. Seems things are worse than we imagined. But it's no surprise. Since uncouth things were happening even in the dungeons that were overseen by the operators and officials, it's no surprise that things like this would happen on land where no one is monitoring anything. Han Junsok said thoughtfully, and everyone nodded their heads. Our biggest threat were not just the monsters anymore. Anyone they potentially meet on this land could now all be enemies. What do you think of just entering level 3 dungeons for now? It would be fine if we just fought against the normal level 3 monsters there, but it would be hard if we ran into any irregulars. I guessed that the irregulars that would appear in a level 3 dungeon would be at least level 4, and there was the chance we could find ourselves faced against a level 5 irregular. With our current equipment and skill, it might be too much for us right now. And it didn't make too much sense for us to leave all the level 1 monsters we could hunt to try hunting after level 3 monsters. Let's think about it some more tonight before we make a final decision on how to move forward. Everyone nodded their heads. Once all the bodies evaporated, we started to inspect what was left behind and the items that dropped. It was a bit easier now to understand why Ban Shihyung had attacked us. This is all. Cho Younggu's mouth was wide open in wonder. There was a small hill of items in front of us. About 30 items left behind by the 15 now evaporated enemies, 3 items dropped from the evaporation, and 3 ores. There was no way we would be able to carry this entire haul in the car. After wondering what we would be able to do with it all, I remembered the upgrade on my manual. I had invested 98 ores into the manual upgrade option so far. If I just invested 2 of the ores that we just got today, I would have enough for the 100 ores required to do the upgrade. I'm going to go do something real quick and come back. Would you like to initiate manual upgrade? As soon as I nodded my head, millions of numbers started to rain down. It was very similar to when I had booted the manual for the first time. It was like a green shower of numbers in the darkness. I waited in the midst of it all until the upgrade was complete. -80.90.99.100%. Upgrade complete. Changes have been applied. Item storage has been expanded to 100. In the case of similar items, you may store up to 99 of them in one slot. You may also store an additional skill for a total of 2. You may perform item fusions within the manual ******. Ha! I had my mouth open without realizing it. I had only been expecting to be able to add more items to storage. But I have an additional skill slot now? And all I did was invest 100 ores. I tried to calm my fast beating heart to no avail. There was no way I could remain calm. Sunba Opa, what are you doing over there by yourself? Ah, you're not doing something perverted, right? Everyone's waiting for you. Hurry up and finish and come back. Do you want to die? As soon as she showed up, I was finally able to regain some sort of control on my emotions. I guess she is useful at times. As soon as I returned to the bonfire, everyone looked my way. It seems they had tried to organize all the items into groups while I was gone. But there was no one who knew the value of any of them. Even if there were items here that were not rare or part of the new system, there was no one here who memorized them all as I have. But there were so many. I simply regrouped the items and distributed them to whoever they were best suited for and put the rest into my manual. As the many items started disappearing seemingly into thin air, they seemed to be surprised. With this, it would be impossible for me to argue that I was storing them simply into a common transparent backpack. It was time to do some explaining. Chapter 57. This is an ability of my skill. I am able to virtually save and store items. It was easier to explain it away in this way than to tell that it was an additional ability that came with the glasses and manual. If I were to really get technical, it's not like they completely have nothing to do with one another, so it wasn't a complete lie, right? So I finished storing the items in that manner. Escape 5 sheets. Takes the user directly outside the dungeon. Light healing potion 5 bottles. Heals light wounds. Ventilation potion 1 bottle. Resets the cooldown period. Leather agile armor 2. Increases reaction rate by 30%. Floodplain cane 2. Can adjust range of attack. The wider the range, the lower the efficacy and vice versa. Ingot sword 2. Increases equipment's durability by 100%. Damn, the ventilation potion is something. With that, I would be able to use Soa's one-person buff more than once in a day. It could really end up being useful one day. Other than this, we also have a level 3 no-name armor. We also have some no-name level 2 items. If there is something that interests you, feel free to take them. What's the point of 100% durability though? I thought items don't break. Cho Younggu picked up the ingot sword and asked as he looked at it. Just because something is an item doesn't mean it is indestructible. They do restore naturally with time, but if it breaks during a fight, it would be difficult to restore, because what would you do without a weapon in the midst of a fight? In such a case, that sword is much more reliable than a no-name. I finished distributing the items. The level 3 armor that Ban Shihyung had been wearing came to me. Cho Younggu took the ingot sword, the floodplain cane went to Manager Kim, and the leather agile armor went to Jong Sawan. And everyone else took the level 2 equipment. Soa decided to take and use both the level 1 agile sword and level 2 no-name sword. This was because she couldn't let the increased reflex option the agile sword provided go to waste. Since she was plenty strong, it would be fine for her to fight holding a sword in either hand like I do. It's also true that most higher-level hunters lean toward using dual swords instead of just one because their skills and abilities allow them to do so. Now that everyone had graduated from level 1 gear, excitement was etched all over their faces. To think we came up on this much in just one fight, I think I can kind of relate to those hunters that Weasel talked about. Han Junsok whispered. The items we had left over after everyone taking what they wanted was still valued at over $3 million. With that kind of money, we could buy 2 level 4 equipment. All this, in just one day. A sleepless night came and passed. I had raised all my abilities that night save for endurance, for a total use of 9,000 points. Proficiency, 24 reward points, 230 abilities, strength 250? Endurance 300, reflexes 250? Focus 200? Defense 200? Upgrade. 1000th. My next available upgrade required 1000 ores. I could think that it was a lot, but if we kept up the pace, I would be able to save that much in a month. I couldn't even imagine what the next upgrade would bring. Sunba Opa, look at this, Soa said while touching her smartphone. What? It's some news about the Yellow Sea. Officials are in shock over news that there have been killings amongst hunters. Corpse count for just yesterday has been at over 100 and rising. It is estimated that there are over 200 dead. These unexpected events have set in motion the decision by the government to station a large number of police forces in the West Sea. Seeing this, it'll stop a lot of people from coming. This was probably what those hunters had been aiming for. Han Junsok spoke up. Compared to dungeons, it was possible to make 10 times the amount on this land. This would have easily convinced most hunters to venture here. But this new piece of news could change everything. But wouldn't it make more sense to just mobilize the army? I don't think the police would be enough to regulate all the hunters. Cho Younggu said. Hunters were vulnerable to firearms. Of course the police carried firearms as well, but they were nothing compared to the army. At the same time, it wasn't that easy a solution. If they decide to mobilize the army, the Chinese will do the same. It's better to send out the police instead, to at least keep the peace. What a headache. Well, it's not our problem. That's the government's headache to deal with. We just need to concern ourselves with hunting. Our main focus was not everyone else. It was to milk out as much as we could from this new land before things got too crazy. We continued hunting for 3 days straight until we ran out of food, water, and fuel. We were able to gather 250 ores and a total of 45 items in 4 days. Most of the investments were put into my upgrade. And after dividing up the items, we had about 31 unclaimed left. I calculated the price of everything once sold to be somewhere around $4 million. Distribution contribution was split with me taking 1/3 and everyone else taking amounts according to their ranking. Since I took all the ores, I wanted to do the split evenly with everyone. But surprisingly Manager Kim pushed for me taking the larger split. If we don't give this much to him, this bastard might just leave us. We need to give him as much money as we can so that the thought won't even occur in his head. With those words, everyone nodded their heads. I had no intention of breaking our party. I felt a kind of bond with everyone now. Where's the trust? Trust is empty. You need to back it up with money. Empty trust is easily shattered like glass. Is that so? Is it because he's had a lot of life experience? I felt a sort of wisdom in his words. In any case, thanks to him, I was able to save $2 million. Since there was now a hunter's market at Manripo, there were no issues. Everyone else took away 400,000 each. As soon as the money was deposited into their accounts, everyone's face looked ready to rip from such wide smiles. Sunba Opa, you want to get married with me? I'll buy the house. What the hell is this girl talking about? We decided to take a day of rest so that the car could get maintained. Cho Younggu went to the auto shop while Manager Kim and Han Junsok went to rest at a hostel. Yung Soa, Bei Yeongkyung, and I went out. The number of hunters had increased much more than the first time we were here. Even with the recent news, it seemed that everyone was dreaming of the riches to be earned instead. Why are we going to the market? Didn't we sell everything we needed yesterday? I was thinking of buying a skill. What? Why? You're going to throw away your effort skill? What a waste. You crazy? Why would I throw that away? Then, I can learn one more, additional skill. What? Both of them yelled out in surprise and stared at me with big O's for mouths. Is it that surprising? Well, if I thought about it, I guess it is. It happened somehow or another. Now that I have money, let's go look for some decent skills to buy. Is it all because of that effort skill you mentioned? Bei Yeongkyung asked in awe. I'd never noticed because she always had her hair tied up, but her long hair and white tee suited her. And since she was well endowed in the front, she was drawing a lot of looks from the men. To think someone with a cute face would have such large, ahem. It was almost enough where everyone seemed to do a slight double take. I'm not the only pervert here. Good. Party head. Shit. I was lost in my own perverted head for a second. The market was crowded with a lot of people. Unlike a department store, they had containers lined in a row so you can only see from the outside like a night market. I don't know if it's alright to sell items valued at over $100,000 as if they were selling hot dogs. It felt as if someone were selling luxury brands on the floor of a street market. No, that's almost exactly what they were doing. I think they sell skills over here. Yeongkyung grabbed my sleeve and pulled me. I followed her to where they were selling skill books. Honestly, it seemed like there were much more people just browsing than interested in doing any real buying. Wow. Just how many zeros are there? Soa opened her mouth. She could probably catch some flies like that. This place was selling skill books ranging from level 1 to level 5. Look, it's a level 4 enchant. $1.2 million. Is that what I have? Yeongkyung had a level 1 enchant. Of course, if the difference in level is 1 and 4, the price difference should also be like the difference between heaven and hell. It's the same category, but not the same. Sunba Oppa. What are you going to buy? Is there something you have in mind? There is one thing, but I don't know if I'll be able to find it somewhere like this. I thought about what skill I should choose all night. I first thought about what it was I needed the most. Ability-wise, I could always raise with my skill and Soa's buff, attack power. I had enough with the Hanshin sword. Plus we still haven't heard any news of high-level monsters appearing in the West Sea yet. It was just a theory, but I thought that maybe all the level 1 and level 2 monsters that had disappeared with the dungeons were all transported here to this new land. Kind of as if this land was a replacement for those dungeons. I don't know why something like that would happen, but if this was true, then I had no need for any real destructive attack power yet. The kind of trash that would kill their own kind just for monetary gain. They could probably be much more dangerous than the monsters we would encounter here. So I came to two options: level 4 skill, immortality, and level 4 skill, high detection. With the immortality skill, if you were in a situation where your head were to be cut off or your heart pierced by something, it blocked it from happening. But since it had a cool time of 1 day, it could be seen as potentially having several lives. This would seem like an amazing skill to have, but it isn't really. Since most people only have one skill slot, what would be the point of having several lives if you're lacking in every aspect of combat that will be useful in saving your life or getting you through a raid? But for people who have more than one skill slot like I do, this is something very worthwhile to have. The high detection skill allows you to detect the location and type of organisms in a large range of land. The reason such a seemingly simple skill is high in level is because as you increase proficiency with the skill, the options that come along with it are extremely useful. Example. Option: Force Alert, is an ability that wakes up the ability holder if a hostile being is in close vicinity. Then if you completely master the skill, you can not only detect hostility but also love or like in your opponent. It is called the Eye of Truth. This is a skill very useful to people who are dating or in relationships. Of course, this particular option isn't something I need. But if I had this skill, we wouldn't have any need for a night watch. They were both great skills in their own way. The immortality skill was good for just me, while the high detection skill was great for everyone in the party. I saw hot dogs stretched out before me. So they do sell those here too. As I bit into the hot dog that Soa handed to me, I purchased the immortality skill. It wasn't a decision as much as that I couldn't find the other skill. The skill was expensive. $1.2 million. So you can survive by yourself? I need to survive so you can survive too. True. So we purchased the skill book in that way and started to leave when we heard some whispers. What's so great about him that he has 2 girls? The girls ain't half bad. And they're different styles too. I like the big-breasted one. She has a cute face and her body is woo. I like the tall one. Great style. And she has a pretty face on her. Huh? Should I go and talk to them? I have a good feeling. With your face? What's wrong with my face? It's manly, you know. Like hell. Retard. You're ugly as hell. Aw. Wait. I'll go say something and come back. I could see why Yeongkyung would be popular, but I didn't expect people to be into Soa too. I turned my head around and looked at her. Is there something on my face? No. I just wanted to see if you had any pretty parts on your face. Huh. Sunba Oppa is finally interested in me. Huke. Soa blinked out a tear. What? I read the skill book and learned the immortality skill. It felt as if a hard marble formed somewhere in my body. It was hard to pinpoint what exactly this felt like. It kind of felt like I was a bit more sturdy now. Well, I can now say that I have a spare life. With this, I can now fight a bit more freely. And last, I raised my ability. I had over 20,000 reward points. I was thinking about how I should use it when I decided to just go ahead and raise everything by 1. I used up 14,500 points and raised my proficiency to 29. Proficiency. 29 reward points. 5.730 abilities. Strength 300. Endurance 350. Reflex 300. Focus 250. Defense 250 ****. Looks like I still have more than 5,000 points left. Do I need to hit 30 in proficiency? If my original theory is correct, the level 3 dungeons might end up disappearing and then they might all appear here in the new land. Just like the level 1 and 2 monsters probably did. Since there were already a bunch of low-level hunters here, I had no desire to bring any higher-level hunters here. The more hunters come to this land, the less we would be able to profit off it. So that was a no all wait. The next day, we packed up all our supplies and put it in our car and left Manripo. I saw dirt spilling out of a large truck as a streamroller was moving behind it to create a makeshift road. Because the lay of the land was pretty smooth to begin with, road construction looked fairly easy. If the roads were completed, it would make travel safer for hunters. Why do you think the monsters aren't heading towards the roads? Soa, who had her head popped outside the car window, asked suddenly. I heard they don't like the smell of asphalt from the roads. But monsters appear in the cities too. I said they don't like the smell, not that they can't bear it. What's the difference? Just because you don't like the smell of a bathroom doesn't mean you won't use it if you needed it, right? Soa raised her thumb up and smiled. You answered it perfectly so I could understand in one go. Since there are still a lot of people here on the outskirts, I'll move closer toward the inner land. Cho Younggu said. And we drove for a long time. Weirdly, the number of hunters just didn't seem to decrease no matter how far we drove in. I don't think we'll be able to hunt properly like this. Let's go south. There should be roads easier to travel by car there. Han Junsok looked at my smartphone and said. What's that? Ah. This is a map that the Internet Explorer drew out. You have to pay for it, but it's pretty accurate. I knew this from my years of collecting data. I knew it would come in handy someday. This was a site that had more up-to-date and accurate maps than your usual web search maps. This land is already mapped out? Someone's got to pioneer this stuff. I'm sure they're making a killing off of it too. They also keep record of monster species and count. If we want to avoid these monsters, we have to go further south. Why do you want to avoid them? Isn't it better for us to run into them? Because everyone else will already know about them, there's a high probability we might run into them. It's better to go to a place with fewer people, I guess. It took about an hour more for us to find a spot where we could hunt without seeing any other hunters. There's a water spot near the canyon, so we would be able to hunt here longer than somewhere else. That, Cho Younggu, who had been driving, grasped his steering wheel a bit tighter and made a frown. In the middle of the canyon, there were over a dozen vehicles blocking the road. This was the only road that was accessible by cars, all other roads required off-road vehicles to travel. And those cars were barricading this road. What's that? Cho Younggu slowed down as he muttered in annoyance. In front of the barricade were a group of hunters waiting. Squeak. We got out of the car and headed towards the barricade. There were some people protesting against the barricade. Why are you blocking the road like this? If we don't hunt here, we have to turn back again and drive for a long time. Not my problem. This is Ezekiel's area. You can't pass. What, if we turn back? We have to drive for a real long way. Oh well, if you want to pass, then pay a toll. Or else buzz off. Shit. How much? 1,000 per person. 10,000 per vehicle. What? That makes so sense. If you don't like it, buzz off. You see this flag here? This means it's Ezekiel's land. The government said they would give rights to land, but they never said they would allow you to charge for passage. Go report us if you don't like it. How the hell are we supposed to report you from here? What the hell? Manager Kim opened his mouth. Do we need to pass through here? We just need to hunt monsters. Let's just turn around and hunt somewhere else. I think Manager Kim is right. I don't think there's any real need for us to pass through this way. Cho Younggu said as he nodded his head. We turned our car around and changed directions. Again. Cho Younggu's face crumpled again. The road was blocked. This was the third time. I turned on my smartphone and checked the map. It seems that all the roads in the south may be blocked. Then we can't go south anymore? Cho Younggu asked. It'll be hard for us to do so by car. There is a road that isn't on the map yet because the map isn't complete, but that might be dangerous. If we're just hunting, it'll be to just leave the car and hunt on foot nearby. Leaving the car is a bit. Leaving a car in a place like this is almost the same as begging someone to just steal it. We had to at least leave it closer to the city and move on foot. Phew. I guess we have no choice but to leave the car closer to the city. Chapter 58. We were currently about 60 kilometers away from Manripo. Walking would take at best 10 hours, not an impossible distance, but not worth doing either. We ultimately decided to leave the car in an area that was bare of all grass and trees. Why? Because monsters could be hiding anywhere. We didn't want to be surprised later when coming back to the car. We decided that we wouldn't stray any further than 1 kilometer away from the car and started on our hunt. We didn't walk 50 meters when we came across a goblin. Goblins never travel alone, so we started looking around for the rest of its group. I'll take care of this one. Han Junsok raised his stalker. For a monster that we were already prepared for, just one stalker was all that was needed to take it down. Ping. The arrow that had flown over 50 meters, impeccably ripped into the goblin's neck. Nice. Soa raised up her thumb and made a pose. Of course, this was basically due to the arrow's ability, but that's what a hunter is, someone raised up by the ability of items and equipment and skills. We walked up to the fallen goblin's body and inspected it. There was the arrow in its neck, but there was another arrow lodged in its back. We had only shot one arrow. Then where did the other one come from? Brussels. Who is it? I drew my sword and swung my head to where the sound was coming from. A male holding a longbow came out. He had a green headband on that had a feather of the same color attached to it. It wasn't just any headband. It was a level 2 item that, using the mockingbird feather, camouflages the wearer with her surroundings. This kind of item could actually be even more useful than a lot of high-level items. If you didn't have a counter or another item, you were at their mercy. Because you wouldn't see them coming. Of course, once your location is revealed, that's a different story. He said. I had my eye on that monster first. But we were first to make the kill shot. Well, agreed. I guess there isn't really a point in arguing over who killed it first. In exchange, can you lend me your ear for a moment? He did seem a bit suspicious, but I didn't feel any evil intentions from him. I scanned the area around us first. You couldn't be too careful. There might be more of his crew hiding around. And they could be hiding in plain sight if they also had the mockingbird feather headband. Luckily, there weren't too many places to hide around this area. The shrubs were too small to hide behind. When I confirmed there really weren't any other people, I walked towards him. Are you alone? Yes, I am. Can you wait just a moment? I went back to my party. Manager Kim spoke first. Who the hell is this guy? It seems he's a solo hunter. He looks to be about a level 2, and I don't think he really has any ill intentions. It just seems he has something he wants to discuss with us. Is that so? It's not a bad idea to at least listen to what he has to say. He might ask to join our party too. Jun Soa spoke up. That was a possibility, especially since there weren't any party number restrictions like there were in the dungeons. Other than contribution distributions, there wouldn't be any issues in adding more people to the party. Additionally, if we were short on profit, all we had to do was just hunt more monsters. We decided to hear him out. After I invested the ores dropped from the monster into my manual, I went to the car with the archery guy. I'm Park Hanbum. You might have guessed, but I'd like to join your party, he said. I already had an answer prepared for such a request. That would be difficult. Adding someone we cannot trust to the party is just asking to put our lives in danger. Do I look like such a bad guy? You can't judge a person just from their outside appearance. That's true, such a pity. Then I'll see you again next time. He didn't seem disingenuous. I grabbed him from leaving. I had some more questions for the guy. Just a moment. I'd like to ask you something. Yes? How did you come to this place alone? You don't seem to have a car. I have a motorcycle way back there. I hid it from sight. Then why are you hunting solo? Ah, my skill is hunting while hidden, so it works better alone rather than with parties. Thanks to that, I was able to pull in a good amount of money the past few days. I didn't have to share any of it with another person. But I came to a realization. If I hunt alone, I run the risk of being robbed of monsters, and maybe even my equipment or life, by other teams. Do you know just how long I waited hidden out of sight so that I can kill that goblin? Not really. 2 hours. And that was taken away in the blink of an eye by your team. And it's getting worse with the influx of hunters that are coming in daily. But another monster will appear if you just wait. That isn't true. Park Hanbum shook his head. For a moment, I didn't understand what he meant. You're saying they don't regenerate? At least not in the places I was at. That's a bit odd, isn't it? Usually, no matter how much you killed a monster again and again, they would appear again. That was why fortresses were usually built in rural areas to keep them away. Laying down asphalt was also something else we did to try and keep the ever-regenerating monsters away. There's no record in history of something like that ever having happened. Well, this is a new land. Who knows what the laws of monsters are around here? Han Junsok said. I guess that would be an easy answer. But there needed to be a reason this was happening. Let's see. First, the level 1 and 2 monsters that had disappeared with the monsters were probably transported over to this land. So instead of this land being part of a new system, it was probably the byproduct of the old system. But the old system had regenerating monsters. There's only one reason why the monsters were not regenerating here. Have you thought of something? No, this is merely speculation, but it wasn't impossible. It was just, it might be that this new land is a dungeon in itself. But if it's a dungeon, then shouldn't dead people's items disappear? Han Junsok made a good point. Yes, that's why it's all speculation. But this huge land that appeared out of nowhere, and the monsters that immediately appeared as well. If this isn't a dungeon, there is no other explanation. That's true too. Of course, whether or not this is a dungeon isn't important. The important thing is that it will be hard for us to come by another monster. Then, we need to move to a different location. But Team Ezekiel is pretty much blocking all roads. I tried a bunch of times but they won't budge. Park Hanbum said. Are you thinking of traveling on foot? Cho Younggu spoke up. If we did that, we would have to throw away the car. It was probably not an appealing prospect for him. No, Manripo was now about 100 kilometers to the north. It would be too much distance to cover without a car. We need to try and see if we can push through somewhere. We're only 8 even if we included Mr. Park Hanbum. And those guys will not stand by while we try to push through. It's true that we've come this far with a bit of recklessness on your part, partyhead, but this is not something that will be resolved so easily. Han Junsok said with a worried look on his face. So you're saying they'll fight back? That's the most likely reality. What are your thoughts on taking on that risk? Han Junsok scoffed at my question. He knew what I was saying. You want them to fight back? He said quietly. It was a big problem if the monsters were disappearing without regenerating. Hunters were coming in droves. We needed to do something to find new land and get to the dwindling number of monsters before they were all gone. Do you think that the government knew things would turn out this way? Bei Yeongkyung asked. This girl was sharp every once in a while. Could be. That might have been why they offered up partial ownership. I didn't understand why they would make such a proposition, but that might be why. Then we could assume that other teams have made their moves just as Team Ezekiel had. Yes. It might be Team Ezekiel in the south, but if we go further somewhere else we might find mercenaries or some other pro teams. Ultimately it looks like we just might end up serving honorary hunter roles without being able to do any real hunting. Cho Younggu said with an annoyed look. I felt the same annoyance. We were a group of new hunters. Hunters who were not able to join any other teams. But we had caught a glimpse of the riches this land that could have been ours. Land of opportunity. The West Sea. Where you could earn as much as the work you put in and rise up in levels quickly to become a real hunter. But it was a silly pipe dream. We were naive. I knew what had to be done now. We needed to build a team. The hard part was convincing people. Convincing them to put their lives on the line to fight against Team Ezekiel. Would there be anyone willing to do that and join our team? Surprisingly, my problem was solved with the help of Manager Kim. Vroom. When I looked up, a number of buses, trucks, and cars drove up behind our car. Clouds of smoke kicked up into the air. It felt like the scene of a movie. What kind of magic did you do? What? Me? Manager Kim wiped his brow as he answered. He then said as if it were no big deal. It wasn't even that hard, something like this. How did you get together so many people? It couldn't have been easy. And it's for something as crazy as fighting against Team Ezekiel. Han Junsok responded. Normally it would be difficult, but this is a special case. Everyone came here with big hopes. There are also probably a lot of people who were not able to hunt for a long time due to the disappearance of dungeons. I would assume that there are also a number of them who were having a hard time just surviving for want of money and food from the lack of dungeons. You just need to say the right things to them. But I still don't see how people would want to go through the trouble. Cho Younggu said. He was looking around at all the vehicles gathered. It seemed he still couldn't believe they were all here. So I said we would take responsibility for them. I told them not to worry and follow us. But that's a lie, right? Young Soa said. Of course. Do you think that Team Ezekiel will just peacefully let us through? I'm sure they'll try to kill every last one of us. But will it be okay? What if they said something later? They just needed the right excuse to do something like this. They were just afraid to do something on their own. They don't really expect us to take care of them. They just needed us to give them that reassurance. Of course, someone might say something later on. But if we were concerned about something like that, we shouldn't have tried something like this in the first place. It feels like we're putting people in unnecessary danger. Don't worry. It's my guess, but I don't think we'll face too much backlash. Do you have some kind of plan? I asked. Manager Kim gave a smirk and said, No, I just feel it in my bones. His words sounded kind of prophetic. And it happened just in that way. The closer we got to the road that Team Ezekiel was blocking, the number of vehicles following us grew and grew. Around the time we arrived to our destination, there were over 100 cars behind us. At this pace, we would get to the spot with over 200 cars. How the hell did this happen? Easy. As soon as a group of 20-some vehicles moved together, the rest of the people who needed an excuse were converted just as Manager Kim had said. Would Team Ezekiel be able to block all of us from passing? Impossible. Now, I think it's time for Partyhead to say something. Manager Kim patted my shoulder. I nodded my head and got out of the car. Clouds of dust all around me, and I could hear the boom boom of running car engines behind me. Whoa, Soa said as she looked out of the window. One by one, people were getting out of their vehicles. Hundreds of them. And there were even more still in the vehicles. As soon as I started toward the barricade, I could almost hear the members of Team Ezekiel shaking in their boots. Among them, one of their bows caught my eye. Level 3 grassland horn bow. An item that raised shooting accuracy. Put simply, it allowed someone to easily make a moving shot. The owner of this bow was a man with a pretty big build. He was probably the boss here. You need to all go back or else. Vroom, heek. When it seemed awkward, all the vehicles behind me began to reverend their engines. The roar of engines only grew louder and louder. My heart was starting race. I was getting antsy. I shook my shoulders up and down and said, Are you going to shoot me? You think we'll let you pass if you do this? I'm just putting it out there, but I can't stop those people from doing anything at this point. If I die here, they'll storm this place, with you still standing here. What do you think will happen then? Shake, shake, shake. The hand that was drawing the arrow in the bow was shaking almost comically now. It was game over. They only had about a dozen men at the barricade while we had about 1,000 behind us now. Shut up. Not even one of you will pass. Big guy yelled out as if to shake off his fear. Hey Dumbo. Do you think that any of us would come all the way here just to turn back quietly? If you don't want to die, back off. Are you a parrot? Say something else, why don't you? Sling. We were going to fight anyway. If we let it drag out and government officials showed up, we would be in a pickle. We needed to get it over with. They had all drawn their bows. Shoot. Ping. I stretched my arm out into the air. Cho Younggu's shield appeared instantly in my hand and every single arrow bounced harmlessly off. Huke? Where the hell did that come from? A few of them fell to the ground from the surprise of seeing me draw my shield from my storage. Leave your equipment on the ground and go. Then I'll let you live. This nobody bastard? Who's calling who a nobody bastard? I raised my hand to signal. Sling. Huke? An arrow flew out from our car and hit its mark. Han Junsuk's stalker. Chapter 59. Seeing the arrow lodge just a hairwidth's distance from his head, the big guy started to sweat as he slowly backed away. Then he made a mad dash for a car that had been on standby. Everyone run. Shit. But I couldn't let them get away like that. I hit the ground hard and sprinted. It didn't matter how fast he ran. My focus was at 250. My reflexes at 300. Instant acceleration and speedy had already surpassed that of a normal human being's ability in these areas long ago. Slam. Huke. I instantly ran in front of them all and cut them off from their vehicles. I still held the shield in my left hand and the Hanshin sword in my right. I lowered my stance in battle position. Shit. Kill him. 5 of them, with their swords drawn, ran toward me. Even the archers pulled their swords free. Arrows were no use in close combat. But with my back to the vehicle, only 2 of them could attack me at one time. Slam. AHT? Slam. AHHK. I slammed my shield against one opponent's sword to knock him off balance while I used the explosive attack of my Hanshin sword against another. As the man flew back from the small explosion, his weapon shattered into smithereens and hit him all over. That could kill him if he didn't get it looked at. Even though I had retired 2 of them in mere seconds, it seemed to only kindle the fire in the rest of them. Because they had over 1,000 to deal with behind them, they probably felt that if they didn't get rid of me and run away, they'd be goners for sure. There would be a mob lynching. But their equipment levels were only 1 and 2s. I was careful to keep an eye on the guy with the level 3 bow while I dropped each of them one by one. This was too easy. The thought came to me that I would probably be able to fight against them even if I were barehanded. Even those that had level 2 items, at most they would raise their abilities by 30%. Compared to that, I had almost a 300 buff on all my abilities. And I also had Soa's buff on top of that. Even if I were to go against 30 of these guys, they would not be able to beat me. Crap. What the hell is this? Big guy started to yell out in frustration. Bro, I feel you. It must be frustrating that you can't get through just one guy like me. I blocked an attack to my shoulder with the shield and stabbed back. AHHK. He probably thought I would only block because he was knocked back completely. He was so shocked by the attack that he looked as if he would drop his sword any second. And then he did. I rolled on the ground, picked up the sword, and immediately put it in my manual storage. The guy who dropped his sword dumbly started to look around for his weapon. My sword? To think he was looking around for his sword when I was right in front of him. Well, it was a $200,000 item. I'd look for it too. Slam. I smacked him with my shield to knock him out. Good night. 2 men on either side of the now unconscious guy ran at me. I swiped my Hanshin sword horizontally. Slam. Each explosive hit from my sword violently smacked my opponent's weapons into the air. But since they were level 2 items, they didn't shatter from the impact. I jumped up, grabbed both swords, and stored them in my manual as I landed back to the ground. What the hell? Is this a spell or magic? Magic my ass. Just then, Manager Kim cast his sleep spell over the enemies' heads. As soon as the golden light cascaded down, 3 of them fell unconscious in a heap. Out of the 5 who had not fallen asleep, only 3 still had their weapons. Die. Schwing. Big guy shot out his arrow, and it flew at me fast. But I slightly moved my body at an angle so it would graze my armor and bounce off harmlessly. What the hell? That makes no sense. This is a level 3 bow. Big guy started stomping around and yelling. He looked like he would have a heart attack any second now. I'm sorry, but my armor's level 3 too. There's no way that it would cause any damage, especially just from glancing off my armor at an angle. Party head. Sorry we're late. Cho Younggu and Jong Sawan ran to my side. It wasn't that they were late, I was just too quick. I'm here too. Park Hanbum. And behind him, 20 some other hunters had followed past the barricade. No, there were more. Tap, 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 tap. Hunters kept climbing over the barricade in great numbers. Shit. What the hell? Are you guys asking to die? Go back behind the barricade. Big guy kept yelling and yelling. Jeez. But the men who had climbed over the barricades were only more emboldened and walked ever closer. Pieces of shits. Selfish pieces of shits. I've always wanted to choke the life out of you Ezekiel bastards. Yay, you guys have been a menace for too long. Guess no one was a fan of these guys. I put the shield and sword back into storage. I had half a mind to just leave them to the mob to deal with, but I had something I needed to do. The bow big guy had in his possession was worth $800,000. Might as well take that, right? I cracked my neck to one side before I pushed everyone back. What? I outstretched an open palm to him. Huke? He swung at me with his bow like a sword. Tap. I grabbed it with my hands. Shit. If you hand over your weapon, I'll let you leave with your life. Shut the hell up. Why are you being stubborn when I'm giving you the chance to live? Kook. We started to wrestle with the bow. The bow began to bend under the strain. Surely it won't break, right? I mean, it's a level 3 item. Kook. To think you'd try and wrestle with me. You think I look that weak? His arm began to shake. Looked like he was putting his all into it. But I didn't give even an inch. What were you saying? This BAAA starred DD. He yelled out on the top of his lungs and pulled on the bow even harder. He was pulling on the bow as if his life depended on it, but I still didn't budge. Then I let one of my hands go. I was holding it with one hand now, while he was using both arms to pull with all his might. But he was still unable to wrestle the bow away from me. Not only was his face a bright red, but his whole body had turned that alarming shade. It looked like his eyes would pop right out of his sockets any second now. Hey, you might just take a shit if you keep it. I'm going to kill you. And here I was trying to give you an out. I pulled the bow hard, and he was jolted toward me. Huh? As soon as his face came right in front of mine, I socked him a good one with my free fist. Kook. I heard something snap as he dropped to his knees and threw up everything in his stomach. Everyone around us started to cheer like crazy. And amidst all of happy roars, I took the bow and put it in my manual. After taking what I came for, I slipped out of the large crowd. They started to take every member of Team Ezekiel and tied them all up onto the vehicles that were forming the barricade. I was half surprised and relieved they didn't kill the lot of them. Is a shame we couldn't take their weapons. Han Junsok muttered. Little did he know, I was the one who had taken almost every single one of them and put them into my manual. Young Soa came up to me and hit me lightly on the back. You should have said something instead of just running ahead like that. We were all surprised. I just saw an opportunity and went for it. And I thought everything would fall apart and everyone behind us would leave if we didn't make the first move. I needed to show them that Team Ezekiel wasn't all that tough so that they wouldn't be afraid to cross over the barricade. The entire crowd of some 1,000 people were looking my way. We were able to overcome this small team, but it was a different story if reinforcements came. Depending on whether or not they stick with me at that time, the tide could go either way. Even if reinforcements were to come and attack, if we just hold our ground and refuse to turn away, they would have no choice to give up. Too many casualties would cause the government to step in, and no one on either side wanted that to happen. You were thinking that far ahead? That's our party head, Cho Younggu said as he gave me a thumbs up sign. We started to move the barricade made up of vehicles. It wasn't hard, all we had to do was release the side brake and push. Go. I motioned for everyone to pass. I don't know how it happened, but there were now almost 300 cars waiting behind us and almost 2,000 hunters. There was no way anyone could chase us all away. Thank you. It's thanks to you we can now try to make some kind of living. Wow, you're amazing. The hunters driving past in their cars kept yelling out to us. It was getting a bit embarrassing. Sunba Opa, it looks like you might get really famous now. It was a great opportunity for hunters to become famous. Because fame always came hand in hand with money. This could help to catapult Team Delta into being a real pro hunter team. But I didn't want to get my hopes up just yet. After letting all the other hunters go first, it was our turn. I double-checked all the items I had taken. 8 level 2 items, 10 level 1 items, and 1 level 3 item. That translated into roughly $3.5 million. Among my haul, the grassland hornbow was a really useful item. It was much better to give to Bei Yeongkyung or Han Junsok to use than to sell. I brought out the bow from my manual. What is that? Soa asked. Level 3 grassland hornbow. You can accurately shoot at something while moving with this. I looked at Bei Yeongkyung and Han Junsok. Both of them were equipped with level 2 items. It was a bit of a shame that neither of them were a match with the bow's extra option. Don't you think that the bow will be a better fit for Ms. Bei Yeongkyung? Since I have the stalker, I think that I am not qualified to use a level 3 bow just yet. I think it would be better for Junsok Opa to use it. Jesus. They were now doing a polite fight of who should take a level 3 item. As a hunter, I'm sure they both secretly coveted the bow. But they were also putting the needs of the team over their own selfish desires. I really like my team. It may have been just a little bit at a time, but I could feel us trusting one another more and more each day. What to do? I'll buy it. Park Hanbum raised his hand and spoke up. Do you know how much something like this is? I don't know how much it is, but I'll buy it for $1 million. I started laughing at Park Hanbum's response. There was no need to pay $1 million for something worth only $800,000. Because then he could just go and buy it at the market instead. There was only one reason for this offer. But how about I pay $800,000 in cash and $200,000 in future distribution? That's sure a roundabout way of asking to put you in our team. It seemed you wouldn't let me in otherwise. Do you have that kind of money? I think I can scrape up that much from the money I've saved up. If you have a level 3 weapon, I'm sure that there will be plenty of other teams who would welcome you with open arms. What's the real reason you're trying to include yourself in our team at the expense of $200,000? There aren't many people you can meet in this neck of the woods. I thought he would say something more along the lines of higher pay probability or because we had better skills. But to say we were trustworthy, it was an answer I honestly liked. I turned around and looked at my party members. How do the rest of you feel about this offer? Everyone agreed and accepted Park Hanbum to our party. A thought came to my head that maybe I should draft a contract or something. Since we even have a team name now, I think it would be a good idea to create a formal contract. Just leave that to us. Han Junsok raised his hand and said, "Do you have experience making something like this?" He worked as a planner, so he'll do just fine. Cho Younggu said while pointing to Junsok. Planner? What kind of planner? In the hunter management area. It wasn't long, but I'm familiar with the gist of contracts, so you don't have to worry too much. I think I mentioned this before, but hunters had the ability to earn a very nice income besides what they could make from ores and items. Popular and famous hunters could earn money from advertising, appearances, sponsorships, and a bunch of other ways. And all of this was handled by hunter management. Everything else could be drafted according to a general contract. The more difficult part is the distributions. But we can put in a clause that says the party head can make changes to distributions if needed. Distributions was always a point of contention with all teams. There are two sides to distributions. Keeping more for the team and distributing less to the members helped overall team growth, but keeping less for the team and distributing more to each individual member helped personal growth. I preferred going the route of personal growth. Just because the team's finances increased didn't mean that the team's overall power would increase. All it would do is attract more hunters. You could say this was how Team Ezekiel worked. Let's get started on the formal contract when we get back after finishing this round of hunting. So we're on our way to becoming a real raid team. It feels weird. This wasn't something I even dreamed of happening. Bei Yeongkyung said. She had been just a level 1 archer and a crappy one at that, so I wasn't surprised this was far and apart from where she expected to be. That kind of stuff isn't important. Just because we create an official raid team and name doesn't mean we're anything if our skills and abilities are not up to par. Yes, we'll make sure to work hard so as not to drag you down. Soa yelled out as she waved her sword back and forth. Now, let's get going. I'll follow close behind while riding this. You won't get too tired? Just because I'll get tired doesn't mean I can just throw it away. This thing's pretty expensive. Tap tap. Park Hanbum lightly tapped his off-road bike. I put my hand to the bike. I wondered if I could store this thing in my manual too. No information on item. I guess not. It seemed that only items could be stored in the manual. The marsh in the south was a vast land stretching out for over 100 kilometers. It should have been big enough to accommodate a few thousand hunting parties. Of course, without regeneration, the monsters here will soon dry up too. So before that happens, we had to hurry up and hunt what we could. We followed a particularly better-looking road in our car, and Park Hanbum followed us close behind. We could already see cars that had stopped so parties could begin their hunting. As I looked through my explorer map, Han Junsok said, "It says that there are more level 2 monsters in this area, so we best be more careful. Whether it's level 1 or level 2 monsters, they're pretty much the same." Manager Kim replied. Currently, Cho Younggu, Jong Sewon, Park Hanbum, and I had level 3 equipment. Of course Cho Younggu's weapon was still a level 2, but he could safely cover our rear with that. It was understandable why Manager Kim was being so laissez-faire about everything. We still need to be careful. Because it's from this point that we might cross paths with monsters like that toad. If they just jump, they could easily move from our front to the side or back. You have me for that. Soa took out her sword and started posing wildly. I shook my head. I couldn't deny it, however, that she did improve her swordsmanship in a short time. You didn't need to be an amazing swordsman to fight against a low-level monster. All you needed to take care of yourself was the basic slash and stab, and she had that down. We kept on the road in the same manner until we saw a new scene unfolding. There were dozens of people who had gotten off heavy trucks fighting against another group of dozen. When I rolled down the window to listen in, it seemed some of them were from Team Ezekiel. It seemed they had tried to block the sudden onslaught of people coming into the new land, but were not too successful. What? Huh? Say it again. This place is Team Ezekiel's land, kook? The moment he grasped his opponent's neck with one large hand, Team Ezekiel's hunter was immediately lifted off the ground. Are you kidding? Who says? Do you see just how many people we have? We can take you on. Kook? Ah, what I meant was. Move that hand immediately. Schwing. As soon as the men on Team Ezekiel's side drew their sword, everyone on the other side did the same. Things were getting a bit dangerous again. It looks like it's about to get real. Soa mumbled. I agreed. Even if it was the West Sea, killing people in broad daylight in front of witnesses was asking for trouble. Squeak. We slowed our car and got out to approach them. It felt as if blood would be spilled if one person on either side moved an inch. Chapter 60. Stop over there. Just stop. As soon as I spoke, everyone looked at me. Huh? Aren't you Jaeon Sangmin? How did you know my name? How could we not? Weren't you the one who allowed all of us to pass through that barricade? I guess, but it seemed my name was becoming quite famous. But that also meant I was infamous now to Team Ezekiel. It didn't matter. Fame had a tendency to bring in negative attention as well as positive. I could handle that much at least. It wouldn't have been possible to pierce through the barricade all on our own. At least bringing everyone else over allowed us to not only come through easily but also have a whole slew of people as a sort of ally. Anyway, there's no point in causing unnecessary trouble here. It's better to just not fight and step away. Same with you guys from Ezekiel. I looked pointedly at the other guys. What are you saying? This is our land. We even got confirmation from the government. Shut up. Isn't that only after you've cleared the entire land of monsters? It makes no sense for you to claim the land like this when we see monsters crawling all over it. I love that way you put it. You're 100% correct. He said as he clapped me on the back. Ezekiel's side was now grinding their teeth, but I paid them no mind. They were the minority right now and, short of losing their mind, they wouldn't try and fight now. Don't pick any fights and just focus on hunting. That would be the smartest move right now. No, was it us who picked the fight first? They were the ones who blocked our way first. We had half a mind to just push past them forcefully with our trucks before deciding to try and settle it out peacefully by getting out and trying to talk. The person who looked to be the party leader explained. Don't make me say the same thing twice and just leave. If you don't want to die, that is. Kook. I spoke a bit more roughly than I meant to. Was this because of my memories from the Beksapyeong dungeon? The faces of all the unnecessarily slaughtered men and the melted faces of the survivors came to mind. Finally, the Ezekiel group moved aside. That was their only option. The truck party's leader came toward me and said, I had wanted to use some force against them, but I will let it be only because of you. Then until we meet again. All of them loaded back into the truck and disappeared into the horizon. And then the Ezekiel group looked to me and said, You said you're Jaeon Sangmin. You were the cause of all of this? Whatever. Watch yourself. From now on, there will be plenty of other people not as forgiving as them. I turned around after saying my piece. It would have been nice if they just left it at that. Stop. What? You didn't think we would just let you go after you did all this shit? No. I just saved you guys from getting killed, so what the hell are you talking about? Save us? Like hell. You're looking down on us. Looking down on you? If that means saving your life, then I'm looking down on you. What? Oh, I'm sorry if my speech is a bit rough, but I'm not wrong. This bastard. Just know today is your funeral. Swing. The sword he had sheathed just a moment ago was drawn again. I made a sigh and said, Don't do this really. I will make you regret letting those guys pass. It's nice that you have so much confidence, but think of it from the other side. Why do you think they left us like that? Party head. The doors to our car opened and both Han Junsok and Jong Sewon got out. When everyone else looked ready to get out too, I raised my hand to stop them. Just wait on standby. I'm enough to handle these guys by myself. Nice bluff'll give you that much. The biggest of them all, wielding a bastard sword, stomped his way toward me. Glancing at his equipment, he had level 2 equipment and a level 3 sword. Not bad. But even if he had a level 3 skill, he was still no match for my effort skill. Kiu. I will make you rue the moment you had your friends stay back. Sorry. What did you say, Hyuk? I pile-drived right into his chest in a split second. Skis. The moment I gave a good hard squeeze to the hand holding the sword, he released his weapon and let it fall to the ground. Hyuk? The moment he stepped back in surprise, I stepped on the sword and put it into storage. This bastard. Doing a surprise attack. Whatever. Just go. I don't want to fight. Wait, where's my sword? What are you talking about? What sword? The sword you just ook. I raised up both hands to show that I had nothing in them. His face froze. Even a non-name level 3 sword sold for about $600,000. He must have felt like crying from losing something like that. Wait, really my sword? Stop whining. If you want to fight, then just hurry it up. PFT. I could hear Soa trying to stop from laughing behind me. His face kept getting redder and redder. Shit, I'm sure it'll turn up somewhere. Everyone attack. He yelled confidently, but no one behind him moved. Unless they were idiots, they would have been able to assess our power. It should have struck them as odd that a bunch of hunters left just on my word alone. It meant that they acknowledged my power enough that they would not only listen to me, but trust that I would be safe even after they left. Only this one idiot didn't understand all of this. What are you guys doing? I said to kill the bastard. I mean, he looks pretty strong. And it's not like we have to fight him. I'm sure someone higher up will do something about him. Everyone started to walk away. Only the guy who had his weapon stolen was still mad. But he couldn't fight alone and weaponless at that, so he followed everyone else. Shit. You just watch. So there are idiots who say cliché things like that. Kiek. He let out a final frustrated yell at my nonchalant words before running at me. It wasn't hard to fight off a foe who didn't even have a weapon. Slam. I punched him in the face. You use this. I passed the level 3 no-name sword to Soa. Are you just passing things out now? Return what you had instead. Okay. She passed back the level 2 sword she had strapped to her hip. After scattering Team Ezekiel, we made a small change in course. There was no need to unnecessarily go on a course they knew so that they could find us again to fight. Our aim was to fight monsters, not people. Of course, the items we gained from fighting people were very, very nice, but not enough to kill. We arrived at a piece of land that didn't overlap with any other party's hunting grounds. Park Hanbum spoke. How many do you think we can kill? If they're level 2 monsters, I'm sure we can easily do about 20 at one time. Armed with level 3 equipment now, we were far stronger than we had been at the Bexapyeong dungeons. But it was better not to overwhelm ourselves since we were fighting on a more open landscape. Then I'll be right back. Vroom. Park Hanbum revved his bike and sped away. After a few moments, vroom. We heard his bike again and saw close to 25 monsters chasing after him. What was interesting was that he was riding his bike in large arcs instead of driving straight. What the hell is he doing? I think he's testing out his new item. Han Junsok responded as he slitted his eyes to try and look closer. It seemed he was able to assess the situation better thanks to the optical ruby ring allowing him better vision. We Park Hanbum got a bit closer. We were finally able to see what was going on. He was shooting his bow while speeding on his bike at the same time. Since he had both hands off the handles every time he shot his bow, the bike would swerve here and there. What is that even possible? On a road that wasn't even asphalt and one that was a bit wet at Thad was using sheer hip movements to stabilize his bike. I can see why he wanted that bow. Han Junsok added. Just being able to ride a bike like that could be as helpful as having a skill. No, it might actually be due to the aid of a skill that he's able to ride like that. Get ready for battle. Struck momentarily by Park Hanbum's riding skills, the monsters had drawn ever closer in mere moments. And in that time, the monsters had gone from 25 to 23. We were already in position. Jong Sawan, Cho Younggu, and I were in a triangle as the range damage dealers, ADC. It was Soa's job to back us up. Vroom. The bike sped roared as it sped past me. I could hear the wheels grinding against the ground. Pot. Park Hanbum shot out an arrow and another monster fell to the ground. That was a level 3 item for you. The damage it inflicted was no laughing matter. Our opponents consisted of 10 predatory toads, 6 striped alligators, and 6 fanged earwigs. 22 in total. Seeing a standing target, they switched their attention to me and started running in my direction. Schwing. Hanshin sword in my right, level 2 no name in my left hand. And I had been wearing my armor for a while now. Squeeze. Squeezing my swords in both hands, I made a dash towards them. Jong Sawan and Cho Younggu followed suit and ran forward as well. Manager Kim started to cast his spell while Han Junsok, Bae Yeongkyung, and Park Hanbum readied their bows. Quickly reaching the monsters, I struck out with my sword horizontally. No matter how sharp the blade is on a sword, it is hard to kill a large monster with one swipe. The key was to attack their weak spot. Flap. One predatory toad struck out its tongue in my direction. I could see the poison dripping off its thick tongue as it came ever closer. Swipe. Flap. As soon as I cut it off, almost 3 more struck at me. Too slow. Swipe. Slash. Slash. Even before they can feel the pain of my blade, I stepped atop the first toad's head. Croak. Stab. I struck down with my Hanshin sword straight into its head. Plus 200. I jumped off the now dead toad towards my next monster. The predatory toad I had aimed for raised its head and opened its mouth. Huge. It could easily swallow me whole. Hot. I yelled out and swiped my Hanshin sword straight up and down. The large gaping mouth split into 2 and transparent fluid splattered everywhere. But even with its mouth split apart, the toad remained its mouth open. and I fell right into its throat. Shit. Splat. The sticky saliva clung all over my body. It smelled putrid. Sunba Opa. I could hear Soa yelling out. The toad's esophagus started to pull my body in. If I just stayed still, I might get digested. I hurried, stored all my weapons into storage, and brought out the bloody sword. This might hurt a bit. Swing. Croak. The toad started to jump about after I cut it. Now I could feel what was left of its tongue pushing at me and its muscles trying ever harder to digest me. I tried in earnest to stab at its throat. Luckily, I was able to do this much since its tongue was already gone, meaning I wasn't paralyzed. Stab. Stab. Just die. Die, why don't you? Stab. Unable to take any more, it finally spit me back out. Croak. Croak. The monster started croaking and coughing as if it had something stuck in its throat. I'm sure it wasn't feeling 100% since I had left my bloody sword stuck in its throat before being spit back out. Ah. My clothes were covered in the toad's juices, and I was unbearable smelly and sticky. I did bring a change of clothes, but there was nowhere for me to shower. I guess I would need to look for some running water after this fight was over. Party head. Han Junsok yelled out. Another toad jumped to where I was standing. I hurriedly hopped back. Slam. The ground shook at the impact of the large monster. I equipped myself with a sword in either hand again. Tap. I hit the ground running. The nasty toad revealed its little stub of a tongue as it raised its forelegs. Unlike normal toads, these toads had incredibly large feet. Slam. Yuke. I dodged its attack and ran to its side. Swipe. I struck at its hip and all its intestines spilled out of the gaping hole. Ah, are those eggs over there? Looks like this one is female. Slam. Slam. It started to jump after Mevan with its intestines and eggs trailing after it. Plus 200. Reward points. Where did that come from? Looking up, I saw that the toad that had swallowed me whole had finally collapsed. It seemed as if my bloody sword had finally done its work and drank all its blood. Croak. During the short time I was preoccupied by that toad, the zombie toad had closed the distance. Swing. An arrow had lodged itself in the toad's forehead. It flinched, but the damage wasn't enough to kill it. But more arrows flew out and one of them hit its eye. Croak. It let out another croak and started to flail its body. And then I jumped atop the miserable toad to jam my Hanshin sword straight down. Plus 200. After ridding of 3 toads in that way and looking around, I saw Zhang Sawan and Cho Youngu engaged in a bloody fight against the striped alligators. There were 6 dead toads. The remaining 4 toads were fast asleep. The striped alligators were much easier to deal with than the predatory toads. The striped alligators were only fearsome when they were hidden in shallow streams. When they were exposed above ground like they were now, all you had to do was avoid getting bitten. Cho Youngu raised his shield and blocked the attacks of the 3-meter-long stipped alligators. Zhang Sawan parried attacks at my right. They couldn't do reckless close combat fighting like I could do. I was only able to do such attacks because of the high-level abilities thanks to my effort skill. Because even if they were level 3 hunters, if they got caught in the level 2 toads' mouths they would not be able to get back out. Most humans fought while depending on their weapons and equipment and not relying on their physical abilities. The same went for dealing with the alligators. I was just the exception. Humans could not move as quickly as the monster's jaws could. One wrong move, and they could lose an arm or leg to the alligators' mouths. Homebrew Audiobooks hopes you enjoyed this program. Stay tuned for future chapters.